Okay, so there's been a lot going on. We've had, what is it, 2 lawsuits, 2 lead developers, 2 deathmatch maps, two less play, 2 less players in the game, and
Two
sadly
less maps.
no Overwatch 2.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
I was wondering how far you're gonna go with that.
There
And
we go.
another Overwatch 2 delay.
No, perfect. I boxed it. I'm sorry.
There you go. There you go. The
Oh,
the remix coming.
It's a collaboration.
Almost cursed
Oh.
holiday song I've ever heard.
Definitely.
Hey, listen, we can't give Fitzy and Freeha any ideas because every
Exactly, I
time
was
they
gonna
make a Christmas
say.
song,
Honestly.
they absolutely kill it. So just wanted to give them a
Mhm.
quick shout out. They always kill it every year with their little Christmas songs.
True.
Talented folk. Talented folk.
Also, am I
Exactly.
like 10 FPS or is it just me? Feels like I'm like 10
Good for me.
FPS. Okay, cool. It's just Discord then. We're good.
Yeah, it could
That's
just be
Discord.
Discord, I think.
It's a little laggy, but good. Like, it's enough. It's enough frames.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Mhm.
so yeah, so there is a lot to talk about. So yeah, I think Discord is being weird. Actually, I can see it now. I see what you mean, Flats. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get quickly to it. But rather than start chronologically, I want to start with the most recent events because they're the most relevant, perhaps, which was the experimental content creator cup and patch. And of course, we have one of the 3 creators of it in this call. So I'm gonna throw it over to Flats, who has momentarily entered the nether. There
Sharing
you go.
this
He's
call
back.
with us, by the way.
Okay, it doesn't work because it shows your guys. Okay, never mind. I was trying to have you like the Discord overlay. I was trying to put you guys on my end, but it didn't work.
It's all good. On
My
that
bad.
note, Flats, take it away. What do you like? How do you reflect from your POV on the experimental card and the patch and the tournament?
So I actually, it's not out yet. I made a video doing a tier list / like reflect of like the power balance of the heroes, as well as before that I did a video of what it was like working with the team and working with Blizzard to make the patch and how much work kind of like went into it. And I can't stress it enough. It was definitely enlightening to see how hard they kind of worked on things. Like they were making changes until like 2-3 a.m. Like it was wild. Like they were going all night long to try to put some of those changes into the game and trying to make sure that they were like kind of what we wanted, as well as like after the experimental came out. So for those who don't know, when the experimental came out, like there was a few tweaks that got made because they weren't like totally what we wanted. Now like Sanju I think added like 20 changes after that, which was not the point, but so I kind of feel bad for them on that part because they had to add all these extra changes. But it was like a way to like tune everything down or tune it to like, it wasn't totally like what you had in mind, like Wrecking Ball
Like
for
the
me.
violet healing, right?
Yeah, like it was like, not totally what you wanted. And like Wrecking Ball for me was like 10 times faster than ever I wanted. Like I wanted more handling and they put more acceleration. So he was unshootable. Like you just couldn't hit him. Like it was not even possible. So like they were kind of like fixing all that stuff, but it was nice to see like kind of how hard they worked with it. And they were very like upfront talking about like, yeah, we can try to do that. Oh, don't know if we can do that. Like that might take a little bit extra work. We can make that happen. Just gonna need extra time to like, are you sure that's what you want? Because like for example, the Orisa hat, like the Orisa hat, I think said it took them like 2 weeks to get that together or something like
Oh,
that.
really? Wow.
Just because it wasn't something they had like programmed into the game.
Did you cause
So
another
getting it-
Overwatch 2 delay for a hat?
Yeah.
For
Well,
a hat?
actually, yeah. Well, yeah. Well,
Leaks.
honestly,
Honestly,
Huh.
worth.
If you remember, the experimental broke the server. Like when it came out, it broke. That was actually because the baby diva melee. It broke the server.
Oh,
It
wow.
wasn't able to handle it. So when the servers died, it was because of that change. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun to do, and I hope we do more of them. I think there will be more of them. Tournaments honestly bring out the best parts of Overwatch. And well, I'm gonna stop there because I'm not sure how much further I can go. I'm just gonna like leave it at that, But I do think we're gonna get more. And this is obviously like I had a lot of fun doing it. I hope that other streamers and other creators get to do their own. I hope that some of these changes actually get looked at like legitimately as possible changes because
Right.
I also had a we also had a video. I also had another video where I put out that I was like, I put some realistic changes within the wacky changes because we were told to make it April Foolsy, but also like certain heroes could use certain adjustments, and I feel like those could actually be in the game. So I submitted actually a second document to them. I was like, hey, like, you should also take a look at these changes. These ones are actually serious, and yeah, thanks for all your work. Appreciate it. And that was like kind of like my experience with it. So I guess we'll see, but I hope that we'll see some changes going forward.
Yeah, I want to quickly disclaimer here before I head to the guest that there's obviously clearly information that Flats is under legal agreement to not necessarily talk about, and there's also a call coming up on Thursday with creators that I want to just let everyone know right now, because chances are it's around 3 p.m. Eastern, 8
So
p.m.
if you
UK
see everybody
time.
disappear, don't panic.
Yeah, if all your favorite Overwatch streamers disappear, it's not because don't get your dead game screenshots out. Basically, we just we'll be having a call with the devs, which is great to hear. But we can't talk about it, which is why we decided to do the podcast before that, so that we're not, privy to information we can't speak on. Now, on that, Freedo, Samito, any of you guys want to vibe on the experimental card?
I got so much I'd like to say. So I want to take my turn appropriately here. I think talking about the balance is always interesting. Because like the more I watched the tournament, the more I remembered so much about the game. And obviously, like it's one thing for us to all get in a call and agree on like the main tank is foundational to the game. It's another thing to see it and have it again in the game that actually matter. There's some byproducts to that. I can go back and forth on the pros and cons of that and maybe discuss that further. But I also want to talk about the tournament experience in comparison to the game we normally play. Because ultimately, to me, I love talking about balance, and maybe like I bias too much towards it just because I'm interested in it. But really, I more so hate ranked. I really, really hate ranked. I've hated ranked for years. And the problem with me for ranked, if I go on my little journey here, okay, like I'm not that good of a player, but I have put in the work to improve my knowledge of the game and my, my role playing and whatever to get to high ranks. And it still sucked. So I'm like, why would I do this in order to play with less friends? That is the opposite of the thing I want to do. So then I'm washed and whatever, and I've been in Masters-ish for a while, for a year, and don't really care and play with friends and whatnot. And that's kind of better, but still not good. Like, it just sucks. So playing in a tournament like this is like a dream come true for me, and just smacks me in the face of just how good Overwatch can be. And I'm sure when we get more to like SVB talking about his experiences as well, like us coming together as a team in that very short amount of time we had to go from not really understanding positioning and pathing and teamwork, to be honest, like on the whole as a team, still working that out on day one, and then Scrim and Flats' team just getting beat into the ground, just pummeled horrifically. Like I'm trying to take Lucio duels, and your sniper just turns and headshots me. I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me just sit the fuck down real quick. But going from that, right, to not really being ready, to then be matched up immediately. We beat our first match, but our second match matched immediately against Solaris, the team that won the whole thing, and we nearly took a map from them. We were 0.5 seconds away from stealing a map from a tier 2 mostly pro team. And that's like such a eye-opening experience to me. And it reminds me of so much stuff that I'm putting in the video that's going to be recapping this in like shorter form. But I never really had good evidence for me to explain why I hate fair matchmaking. Fair matchmaking puts you up against like-minded or like-skilled players, so you never learn. So ranked feels like hell for everyone all the time. And you always think, well, this is my teammate's fault, whatever. But then you go up against a tier 2 pro and you're like, oh, my Lucio movement isn't as good as I thought it was. Maybe I deserve to be in Masters, because, I get like forgiving, give me some VOD reviews, showed me this, you're doing this wrong. And I'm like, oh, shit, man, I'm leaving SV down the river. I'm using AMP too early, and like all these things. And you only really learn that when you have to be accountable to your team. Overwatch is a team-based game, and everything you do affects your team. But you don't learn that playing with randoms, because you don't know if you'll ever play with them again. And everyone just is in this state of ignorance all the time. Whereas you get in a team, and especially playing against better players, you immediately know, oh, this guy's in my spawn in Eichenwald streets, above us, looking into the doorway. Like, how do you deal with that now? It's not like, what SR am I going to get and eventually get to, and how much output generally do I have, so I'm vaguely at the right SR. No, there's a guy in your spawn. What do you do? Sorry, I'm pounding. I'm getting really emotional about this. But, like,
no, I love
this
it.
is serious shit to me, because it's the difference between viewing the game as a team game, where it's like, how do we work together, versus I deserve more stuff for me because I'm a solo player and I play COD, and like every game should feel like Call of Duty. So it makes me upset, because I've been shouting this since day one, right? And it just more and more time, I get more passionate about it, and finally being able to take part in something like this where there's limitations on how many insane pros you can have on a team. I mean, Solaris kind of sneaked in Muma there, who's like a retired pro, but still kind of a pro. So I think that's kind of cheating it a little bit, but that's fine, whatever. And we as, you know, ranked Scrandies can go in there and learn so much about the game in days. And it's so much better. It's just better. Why is that not the game? Why is the ranked BS thing the game? That's my rant. I'm sure you guys have plenty to say, but
Well, I want to take it to Sam first.
go ahead.
Sam.
Absolute +1 on what Freedo said. Obviously, I remember in 2018 going on your channel, Freedo, and you and I talked. This was one of the first times we talked, and back then I was much more of a hardcore player than I am now, obviously. But you know, playing in this experimental tourney, it gave me hope, but also broke my heart, because I know that is what Overwatch is. I know that Game of the Year Overwatch is what that tournament was. And it's kind of like when you get a taste of something that you once loved that kind of went sour, and you just remember what was or what could have been. And it was true for the first time since roll queue, really. I put that game down craving more. And not banking on roll queue, but scrims in contenders like early 2020 when it was Prime, Double Shield, Mei, Hanzo, Zen Bap with 8-second immortality field. That wasn't the game I fell in love with, right? That was Connect 4. That was not chess. And for the first time since even Goat's meta, really, like Goat's was very chessy. It just was the characters involved, like cooldowns just completely outweighed mechanical skill on the entire DPS hero pool. But there was still like the cooldown exchange for the first time since original Dive, season 5 or 6. Mechanics had high impact, decision making had high impact, and cooldown management had high impact. And all three of those things checked and balanced each other in a very healthy way. The core fundamentals of the game were what they once were. And now, one thing that I want people to pay attention to is you might have seen like a lot of wacky abilities, right, and fun things. But the reason why that tournament was so much fun, and that was the true essence of Overwatch, was because fundamentally, as Freedo kind of mentioned, the main tank role actually being important and playing like it once did, the fundamentals of the game of how you set up for fights, how fights progress, like it's been a long time since my mental, like what made me like really pretty good as a player was my ability to read fights and see 7 or 8 decisions ahead in order to win, right? And in ranked, it's just like you're smurfing with that when you get a good team who can do these things. But in that tournament, like when we played Solaris, we went down 2-1, like my brain overloaded. For the first time in a very long time, like my brain like I couldn't process everything at once. And like as matches went on, I started to be able to process more. And I left that match thinking not, well, they picked Brig, damn it. Like this is like, what can I do to that? Like there was one fight where Muma charged me out of EMP after we collapsed on a target on a fight we should have lost, that we started to turn. And then my brain was like, thought 5 things at once trying to adhere to like how we could win. And my thoughts got colluded. Muma all of a sudden is on me and I'm just dead. And I look back at that. I'm like, man, like for the first time, I want to play more so I can see what happens in those massive chain of events that make Overwatch. I didn't feel like any character had an inherent advantage on the other. It just felt like how you played dictated the entire game. And it was beautiful. It was
Move played by nut, by the way.
Yeah, no, dude. He's always been an incredibly underrated player. I love Muma. What a great,
Everyone
great,
on this podcast was stomped by Muma, by the way. Everyone was firsthand.
Yeah, it's just I really, really hope that the Overwatch team takes a look at how that tournament played, how everyone is saying this is the core experience that made us fall in love with your game. And I really, really hope that we consider not only doing it more, but finding a way to consistently apply formats like that so that everyone everyone that's loved Overwatch can just jump in and queue into that. That is the true experience of Overwatch, not all these Roadhog players insta-locking Hog in 2-2-2, a hero that just does not work in 2-2-2 at all. And immediately your whole team synergy is screwed because you all have to play individual duelist heroes instead of like actual coordinated team play, which made this game phenomenal.
Flats, anything to add?
Sure, because we were talking about like the tournament experience. I can do mine really quick. First off, for anyone that's new, especially because I feel like there's a lot of old guard Overwatch people have kind of left at this point, and a lot of new people that might have been their first tournament they've ever seen. And going on beyond that, they do not understand. Even if they watch Owl, maybe it doesn't get said that often anymore. But the hardest and most important role, arguably in Overwatch, is the main tank role. And this tournament really highlighted that, and that's why, you know, everything relied on you playing synergistically with your teammates as well as making plays. Like there wasn't you just picked Brig and you won, like you said. Like there was no like, oh, you felt like you got cheesed by X hero just, you know, doing whatever they wanted. You were fully accountable for everything you had to do. Like for example, I'll just come out and say it. Like I actually think we lost to Solaris because I got outplayed. Like I think if I played better versus Muma, I think we win that tournament actually. And not like some people will say like, oh, but you played well. Like there could have been a May wall here, or you could have played like
their May was popping.
There's always
Yeah,
more.
I watched
There's
I mean,
always
yeah.
more.
There always
way, I
is.
get what you're
No, but
saying.
like to me
wouldn't
though,
put it
you know
all
what I
on you,
mean?
though.
Like to me, that it's very rare because if I queue up right now, right, and they go break fucking Zen, and I have Lucio, like Lucio Mercy, and we pick Hog Ball, Tracer, Echo, right? Basically, if you're the tank player playing ball, or even if you play hog in that aspect, because there, what else the fuck you gonna play, right? Because the Arista isn't that great with a Sigma right now, unless you have like BAP, because you know the shield's really thin. But like you know, like it's double shield is good, but it's at the same time it's not as dominant as it once was. Honestly, hog comps just fucking break the shield faster, anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Plus, what's the point? Like you just shoot at the hog and he gets 33% less, or where the fuck it is, less ult charge on him anyways, so you don't even get rewarded for shooting the hog, so there's not even like a point to shooting him until you can just burst him as a 6-man, so you just leave him alone. You try to kill the Zen and Brig, joke's on you, you're dead. Like you're just there's like sometimes there's genuinely you feel like there's nothing you can do, but the tournament was different. I could have tried to like for example, I went through and watched and like talked about my thought process on some of them. We actually lost Nepal Sanctum. It was 99-99. There was 2 misplays. One where I called Muma was 1 in our spawn, and Anj and someone else walked by him to go help point because they had point first. So there was a 4v2 on point, but Muma got both the megas on our side and then looped back at full HP and flipped the fight as I got there. So that was 1. We could have prevented that. And 2, I tried to bait, because I was the only person with an ult on our team with Shatter. I tried to bait cancel Shatter Muma because my analogy with it was I pinned at Muma, I would cancel last second and then slam and then get him, his Lucio, and Namora, and that would win us the fight because like it was starting to go against us again. He didn't fall for it. Like the bait didn't work. That one play could have won us the map. And it's like, it's crazy. You can look at like these moments and certain things and you can pick them like, yes, I could have made a better play here, or no, they made a better play than me here. I didn't get cheese on this. I could have done this before. They could have done this before. We could have done this 2 steps before. There's so many other answers, but there's so many things to look at, like, and you're being held accountable for your plays. It's not, oh, Zen just 5-orbed me from across the map with a Discord orb and Brig sat next to him, so there was no way I was going to kill him anyways. Can I make an accountability was huge. Yeah.
Can I ask, like, so the way I think what you just said is really, really important, and I want to try to like phrase it, because Freedo always helps me with this. Like the way I phrase things can be kind of like confusing. Like yours is clear, but like, have you ever seen the movies where they explain, or any storyline where they explain how there's all these kind of different outcomes in the future, and they have like a tree that splits and splits and splits and splits continuously until there's like literally hundreds of different possibilities that could happen? You know what I'm talking about? How like there's kind of like
butterfly effect.
like timelines. Yes, butterfly effect. Thank you so much. that tournament had the butterfly effect with how you can make plays. But whenever heroes like Bap and Brig are played so consistently with Immortality Field and stuff like that, heroes like that tend to set the outcome or drastically reduce the amount of decisions that can have impact. Because Brig right now, the way she heals is just so enormous, right? And the way she can do all these things are so enormous, it drastically limits that tree. For the first time in a really long time, that tree of the butterfly effect was just enormous. Like there's so many different things that can happen, and all of those things can happen from the smallest decision. I think that's what you're describing is that, and it's just beautiful because once you start to learn it, you're like, holy shit, this learning curve is almost infinite. It's undefined. Like you can't, and that's what made Overwatch so beautiful. There was no skill ceiling. It was just crazy. Right. And that's really what that felt. Sorry to cut you off, Flats, but I like that. I feel like that's such an important point that we really should hammer it home.
Agreed.
Yeah. So Flats, is there anything else you want to add before I kind of want to bring something in as well?
You're good. I think I've said my piece.
Good. Because there's a lot of compounding factors I kind of want to acknowledge here. There's a lot of things that came together to make, and I also concur with you guys. It was an incredibly fun experience. The most fun I've had playing Overwatch. I don't even know in how long playing in the tournament. But there's a few compounding experiences. So one, we talked about just the fact that we were playing in teams instead of the hell that is ladder, as Freedo spoke about. Also the thing that you guys saying, the main tank balance. But I think just generally balance being radically different and the game being kind of new in a way, right? Like we were playing and we were all kind of like, everyone kind of going into the tournament hadn't really scrimmed long enough to really know what would work and what wouldn't work. We had ideas. And we're kind of like, I think this is strong. I think this is strong. And I think we can run it like this. But being able to go into a game and kind of feel it out and feel it out mid-tournament and be like, okay, I think we should run like this, guys. We should run like this. That was another really understated, underrated aspect of why it felt so good. Is that, you know, we've harped about it before, but having radical balance changes, or at least just the game feel different rather than, I feel like what we've almost accepted for the last 18 months is like, okay, well, you'll get like a 5% change here. Some guy got 25 HP there, 50 HP here. Like this cooldown is a second less. And those are good for like tweaking the fine balancing of heroes. But I think when we don't get these like shakeups of the game, it starts to feel very stale. And then we don't really get that childlike excitement that Christmas brings us. You know, when we want to play with an exciting game, right? So there's that element too. But I do want to now dwell a little bit on the team play aspect of it because, again, to devil's advocate, I know there's a lot of people who are going to watch this and say, well, actually, I don't enjoy rush meta. You guys are kind of biased. You know, we've got multiple tank players here, people who enjoy the rush meta, so you guys are kind of like biased. But regardless of your feelings on the rush meta or not, and I know Sam, I can already tell by that breath, Sam is like kind of gearing up to be like, no, it's about autonomy, it's about reward for your decisions, it's about characters not being broken. But wherever you land, I think on that side of the spectrum, I do really want to hammer on the point that Freedo was making earlier about this is what the game is supposed to be. And I feel like we've almost been desensitized for 18 months to accept solo queue, hog lock, DPS priority passing, you know, everybody just play for yourself, Overwatch. You know, myself included, because I railed for the longest time about like, no, let's bring like team elements, you know, put stacks in against solo queues. Like, I don't care if you're a solo queue player, you should learn how to play the teamwork game. But over time, I kind of mellowed on it because I was like, well, that's not what most people want. People just want a solo queue. They just want to do whatever they want. But playing this tournament again, I'm like, yeah, but that's such a worse version of the game. Like, that's such like an inferior version of the game that like, even if you realize that fully compared to realizing a team play Overwatch fully, it's like night and day. And I'm just going to leave that point hanging and feel out what you guys have to say. Because I really think like they don't even compare. The team Overwatch is what we need to push.
I'd use more brutal language and just say it isn't the game. It's trying to be a different game altogether. And the sad thing is when you get like, you know, we had a teammate who's a plat player, and we're trying to explain like, well, you play like that, you make these mistakes because you're used to your tank never capping the point. So you as the healer think you have to cap the point. And there's just so many, there's like, your Overwatch as a channel is like just filled with videos about stuff like that. And it's funny to me sometimes because when I advocate for like stability in the game and whatnot, a lot of people say, well, you make all your videos on how crazy the game is. Like, no, you don't understand.
I just want it to be a good game. I don't need content. I'm gonna have something to talk about. I talk nonstop. You've heard me on these shows. Like I'm not struggling to talk. Okay, like I don't need them to balance it badly to give me something to criticize. That's not what I'm looking for. Or ever was looking for. So I didn't really get to comment on the balance thing. So I just like sneak in a little thing here. I'm a little torn on it because I don't. On one hand, I wouldn't want to see Moira May mirrors for like a year.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have like main tanks have just been brutalized as a concept of the game, seemingly to be like, you don't need one because it's a shooter game. Enjoy. Just do what you need to do to play like a solo player in Overwatch. And it's like, but that's not the game where you made. That's just not the game you made. So it plays worse. And having played there's no excuse for an April Fool's patch to play better than Overwatch does. There's no excuse for that. I think we're not making a big enough deal about how stupid that sounds. Where we're like, like main tanks are good for the game. Oh, mind blown. Who could have thought that? But it's like so obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Flats. What you want to say?
I want you to go, but I just wanted to throw in one thing really quick because you actually made a really good point about the plat players. If you and I have become a little bit more in tune with the casual Overwatch community, as much as it sometimes pains me. For example, I've been trying to experiment with TikTok because I think it's a very, if not the most explosive platform to grow on. I had this one or two just like the Mercy changes and stuff, and seeing people just lose their mind at like Moira and Mercy are the same hero, just delete the character, stupid devs, blah, because they don't know it's an experimental. They just ramble whatever nonsense comes out of their mouth. But here's the real kicker. Most believe that Rein Zarya is the strongest tank line in the game. And that is from bronze to plat. Maybe around diamond they get a fucking reality check. So what happens to those players who actually think they want to get good and they actually want to play the game, and like put a lot of hours in, and they decide to play the role like the main tank, or they play Zarya and they're looking for a Rein, and then they realize past like Masters, that's not real. That doesn't exist. There's just a disconnect. So there's such a heavy disconnect between the two. Imagine you put in 500 hours to learn Rein, right? Or learn Zarya. And then you got to Masters and they went, yeah, what the hell are you doing? Pick Hog, pick Ball, pick Sigma, pick Orisa. And you had no clue what you're doing. You know what ends up happening? You get the 3,800 hard stuck Rein player in your game who picks Rein. You have Rein Hog as your tank line. The Rein is dead on cooldown. And the Hog is in fucking Narnia.
Yeah.
That's why your games suck across the board. Because there's no longer a connection between high ranks and low ranks. They don't even play the same thing anymore. Like, it's not even close. It used to be high ranks played like goats, right? Low ranks would play Rein, Zarya, Lucio, Ana, Moira, or some shit, like just some wild shit, like some crazy, like not real goats concepts. There's not even a semblance of a connection anymore between the two levels. Like, if you weren't already high masters or GM, I don't even think it's possible for you to get there anymore unless you get all the way there and then learn a whole different set of heroes and then climb even further. Mm-hmm. I think we're all stuck here.
Can I add on to that about what specifically is the reasoning for that?
Sure.
And I hate to sound like a broken record, but there is one character primarily that is accountable for that entire disconnect, and that is Brigitte. That is what happens when you have a hero in the game that changes how it's fundamentally played, and when it's bad at low ranks, but god tier at high ranks, right? Because again, I say this all the time, and Freedo, to your point about the April Fool's patch being better than the live game, how is there disconnect on that? There have been people saying that they just get listed as DPS whiners by the very educated community. We've been saying this for literal years, right? And unfortunately, people just thought we were complaining to complain.
DPS whiners? Have you seen what Break does to Winston? You ever seen the Aspen
That's
clip?
my point. That's what I tell people. I'm like, look, it's worse. They're like, well, you play Doomfist, Samito. That's all you want. I'm like, do you want to know why I learned Doomfist? Because it was the only flanker that could answer freaking Brig and Bap.
Sam, you know why they think Brig is bad? Because Rein shits on Brig at close range. Yeah. They've been playing Rein. Yeah. Rein is good against Brig at close range.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So there's like multiple elements to this. I kind of want to, because I think they're kind of slightly two different areas we're touching on. One is that disconnect that Flats talked about, which is very apt, about how when one character is played correctly, as Samito saying basically, Brig, it can kind of suddenly flip a meta on its head, because when you get into lobbies where someone knows what this character is doing, suddenly all these other characters stop working. So there's that element, but there's also the element
low ranks at all.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly. Because again, if when that character, it's kind of like, I guess, Bastion, right? It's like Bastion is a viable pick until everyone learns how to counter him, and then suddenly he drops off the face of the earth. It's kind of like the reverse of that with Brig, right? Where it's like when nobody knows how to play it, this character doesn't even make sense. It's like, well, of course, that's just dumb. But when someone suddenly in the lobby is like, I can play this character, it changes the whole dynamic of the game. But I think the other thing that I think Freedo was alluding to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Freedo, is that, you made the point about Cupcake. Cupcake was our teammate in the tournament, and myself as well. What I realized during the tournament when I was trying to improve is that everything that I was doing wrong was everything that solo queue taught me, basically. Everything that I was doing was like, every mistake I made was because I didn't trust my teammates, right? Like, so when I'm playing main tank, it was like, we were kind of vaudeving in between games. We were talking about it. It's like, SVB, you gotta stand this ground here. Like, you gotta stay here. Like, you can't back up. And I was like, yeah, but if I stay here, I'm gonna die. And it's like, no, I'm gonna DM you, dude. I'm gonna DM you. Like, don't worry, I'll DM you when you do that. And it's like or for example, when I was playing Monkey and we were scrimming against a team running like Reaper Cassidy, and my team was like, no, you just gotta go, dude. You just gotta go and run on them. And in my mind, because I've been playing solo queue for like years, this is literally the first scrim team experience I had. In my mind, I'm like, well, I see a Reaper and Cassidy in solo queue. I'm not going there. I'm not gonna run up against those guys. That would be like suicide. I get flashbang deleted, my team will flame me, and like, what the hell? But in this comp, that's what I need to do, because I need to trust that my teammates will be there. They'll give me the DM, they'll give me the healing, and then I make space for them, and then we win the fight. So it's like, as Freedo was saying, I'm not even playing the game anymore. It's two different games, right? So there's the disconnect of the hero balancing and how heroes are played, but also just the disconnect of solo queue versus what team Overwatch is, where it's like, I'm playing solo queue Winston, and I'm learning how to play for myself, but that's not Overwatch. That's not how the actual foundation of it works. So go ahead, Freedo, take it over.
Yeah, I think you said it pretty well, man. I can give my own experiences and whatnot, but the thing that I guess irritates me is that when they expect one balance patch to work on both ends, and this is something I've said a million times, that you can't expect that. And we're supposed to be recapping the year, so
you're right.
Sam did say a trigger word for me.
Kind of are.
I know. What I'm next going to say could be a rant that I'm going to truncate. Sam said my turn on word, format. Okay, so I'll just insert format rant here. We need go. Because the truth is, if you have a format like we have, which is casual, free pick, or whatever you want to call it, quick play. We have a quick play format where it's like swap to whatever you want. We're going to be doomed to these singular metas, generally speaking, is the thing. Especially when you have two radically different styles of play, where what he's discussing is like, what should I do when I have the diva player from Goats? The team that invented Goats? Yeah. That guy. Remember that guy that like helped the Goats team go in and counter everything? Need a pretty good diva for that when Who Are You's trying to play Genji against you or whatnot, to eat it right and be insane. Yeah, that guy can DM you, right? Like, and make you feel invulnerable as you go in. That's an entirely different thing to do things properly, as opposed to what rank does teach you, which is every man for himself. Yeah. Right? Completely, it's just not the same game. And so how do you balance for that? And my answer is, you need a format change that's structurally going to handle different levels of play and different levels of team play as well. I don't know what that is necessarily. I always bring it up every single show, but the fact is, like, I get somewhat frustrated with us having like one answer to every problem, which is, well, we'll just rebalance it again. Well, rebalance the whole thing. Well, it's like we're just shuffling the deck over and over again. And I think it's provable that certain things are just foundationally better for Overwatch than others, like main tank play, for example. I watch a game like CSGO, buy the AK every time. Like, if you got the M4, you see an AK on the ground, you pick it up. It's better, but that's okay, because it like is the game. And then like the snipers are good along. It's just like, what the competitive game is. And that's usually what I try to push for Overwatch. So it makes it impossible to properly teach anything as well, as someone who tries to take these concepts and apply them to a learning player.
we're at the point now where I can't teach anything because I don't know what the game's going to be in a week, right? So like Overwatch 2, I have no idea what to teach. How do I teach you? I can barely teach you this game because they don't keep it consistent ever. And like we're saying, we've gone from main tanks being important to what Flats is describing. Main tanks are literally countered as a concept at higher tiers. That's what I think people don't understand, because at those lower ranks, to describe the skill floor, skill ceiling problem here a little bit, to elaborate on this balance point, like the lower rank you are, I'd say, the more your character has to be like naturally durable without needing to put much in. So having a guy that's a shield versus like if you're in gold and they pick Sigma, well, he doesn't manage his shield and he's just like, he doesn't eat at the right time, whatever. It's like a very more skill intensive anyway. Like the floor has a higher skill intensity to it, as opposed to just, I have extra armor and a shield. Like that's easier for them to play and just toss that at there. But once you actually learn the game, then the whole concept of tanking in general gets countered, and they just haven't really rectified that until, you know, your boy Flats comes in with the main tank mega buff patch. And the crazy thing that I thought with this, with all your guys saying, like I basically agree. I'm like, why didn't we hear anybody really complain at how broken these tanks are? Like when I was playing D.Va in our scrims, I was like, this is ridiculous, Flats. What did you do? I'm like flying at a Faro from miles away. Like it's way too broken, right? But it's playable. That's what I keep trying to tell everybody. It's not about like pick rates. It's not about diversifying all the cast all the time. You should think about playability first. That's my opinion as a competitor. Other people are more casual with it and just want to see the deck shuffled. But I think that's like not a long-term viable way for Overwatch moving forward. And I'm concerned because we haven't heard anything about the word format yet, right? We lost the tank. It's like, oh, well, it's more of a shooter game. So that looks like it's more of the things we're kind of saying are kind of an issue right now. And like, yeah, you'll get some casual players that come in like, oh, I'll stop playing Apex this weekend. Let's play this shooter game Overwatch. And it's not going to feel like a big enough difference, right? It kind of, I don't want to see us losing what makes Overwatch unique, which is a lot of what we saw in the experimental card. Okay, I tossed around a lot of things. I don't know. We're kind of like machine gunning these points.
We transitioned the conversation here off of Freedo to, you mentioned something there that I think we're recapping 2021. This is probably one of the most important things that we should talk about. What do we think about the game going to 5v5? Right? Because there's been a lot of talk. I don't want to, does anyone else want to say anything else first? Sorry to go to their SVB, but I feel like that'd be a really solid transition to
Yeah. Let me change. I was going to just add one thing to what Freedo said, which is just a succinct point, which is that I kind of said this in a video that I haven't released yet, but for the main tanks to be viable, they had to be broken. Like that was a sad like, you know, what's the word? Indication of their state. Like Flats had to giga buff Rhine for the character to not get shit on. And that I think is kind of where we're at, basically. But anyways, carry on. I think you're right.
They're close range in nature. They don't do 5 things at once. They walk this way. They're good at holding that spot, and that's it. They don't also shoot from miles away, pull you all together, have a mini ult and a thing that cancels an ult. No. They got a shield and a body, and they throw it at good places. You press W in the right spot. That's what a tank is, interactionally speaking. I mean, I don't know if that's a word, but with the rest of the game. And no matter what, that always feels somewhat fair to play against, even with how broken D.Va was, or we got Emong spawn trapping us, jumping on Anubis, like rocket jumping into our spawn. I'm like, even that, it as broken as that looks, like the structure of the team fight, which Sam kept saying, still makes sense. That's the thing. We actually had structured team fights. The tanks were broken, but we're playing Overwatch is the point. And that definition matters more to me than seeing like the pick rates of Hog. If I think we look at those Hog pick rates, but there would be an emergency rebalance patch because Hog never got picked. I looked at the Hog change. I'm like, he's never going to get played in this tournament. Right. But like, what does that tell us about the game? Right. Like all of a sudden there's no Hog and Zen Brig getting played. Man, all of a sudden it's feeling pretty good. It's kind of weird how that goes.
Isn't that crazy?
This brings us. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Seth. Okay, I was going to say, I'm leading on to where you were trying to take it, which is that this leads us nicely into the question of 5v5, because one of the ethoses that we've ostensibly been given with Overwatch 2 is we want everybody to be viable, right? Like we want, hey, Bastion has a little niche here, you know, like you can play Bastion and you can play this, and, you know, people said, well, if we don't have 2 tanks, how will we counter a Pharah Echo in the sky if there's no D.Va, you know, blah, blah, blah. No, it's fine, everyone will be viable, and so that's the dream, and I can buy into the dream, but is that like, is that not incongruous with this idea that like there should be a stable Overwatch? Like, how can everyone really be viable, and then it's not just like everyone is the same shooter character? So, Sam,
Can I make one quick point about what Freedo
Yes.
said previously?
Yes,
One
yes,
quick, I'll keep
absolutely.
it really, really brief. And to make Freedo's point even more, shine through, that just goes to show you, even with main tank Reinhardt doing 400 damage to shatter, Diva having 4-second boosters, all of these things, when the other heroes in the game that do everything at once, I hope people start to understand just how good it is when you put DLC heroes in the game that do all of those things at once. The numbers, like, you have to buff the numbers on other characters that much to get them to compete with heroes like Bap and Brig, who heal and peel at the same time, Sigma, who has ranged poke, shield at the same time, and a grasp and a stun. Orisa, these heroes, notice how they're always in the tank and support role too, by the way. Maybe aside from Echo, but because Echo can copy the tank and support role. But just think about that. It took that much to get the game back to the core because the other characters that are DLC fundamentally do everything at once, just breaks the game. That's all I want to say on that before we go in there too much.
You made me think of something I think might help explain this as well, a way that might articulate this more accurately. But like, it's not well defined in like the public consciousness in Overwatch, like the later stages of a fight, like clutching and turning a fight. And when you play against a mostly tier 2 team like Solaris, like we did, it's like all of a sudden it's like, I thought we were winning. I booped 2 off the map. Oh wait, they're regrouping and they're using this ground. Now we're getting shot and we died. Like the late clutch factor of the fights matters so much in Overwatch that if your character can do multiple things, you all of a sudden are a bigger force because you're getting value from that position. Like, it's one thing to be like, all right, we're in the break of the fight, as I like to call it. We're all grouped up together. We run in together. This heals that. This, I need help from this player to get value. But then once it starts to like divulge into clutch factor, the more flexibility you have, the more viable positions you'll have when turning fights, as opposed to feeling like we did in old Overwatch. Oh, I'm a Winston against a Tracer at the end of a fight, I better run. As opposed to Sigma, who's like, oh, I'm gonna huddle back and you better not come or I'll one-shot you. Ha ha ha. I'm a tank who does everything. Right? Like that's the difference of these characters in this playstyle, because regardless of how OP Diva was or whatever, still shoot her in the back. She's really big. You hit a lot of things. It's like all these things, it just made me realize. Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can still interact with it and punish it, when I think that also says a lot to the mega anti-tank kit in the rest of the game that still exists, particularly like DPS stuff. Like, I mean, don't get me started on Mei, and we buff Sombra in this patch and all this, but like there's a lot of ways to just look towards a tank and be like, no. But if you're a tank that has like a machine gun attached to it, like in the normal game, then it's like, oh, I'm hacked, but I have Fortify and I shoot. So it's like,
doesn't matter.
You got to be really careful.
You lose the abilities, you lose the fundamentals, and not the actual player.
Right. And that's kind of the difference. If they balance towards being able to do everything, then you're going to be more viable later on in the fight, which is like a super complicated point. But I hope that kind of help make sense.
It's important for people to think about, yes.
Because it's not just the poke stage of the fight, a double shield rolling you or hog ball or whatever. It's like, what options do they have later on? Do they have to regroup, or can they go back in? And that's a really big deal to the game.
Yeah, no, that all makes absolute sense. And I'm just going to, again, just piggyback off that and ask, like, well, how does that translate to 5v5? Because I haven't released this video yet, but I talked about it on stream, which is that, like, Reinhardt's doesn't fit in that world where other tanks do, multiple shits at the same time. I don't think having a charge cancel and 2 fire strikes changes any of that, because at the end of the day, he still has to drop his shield to do any of that. And when he drops his shield, he gets fucked. Whereas obviously Sigma, Orisa, they can still fight back while they're protected with the shield. So how do we translate what we have now into a tangible way to play the game in 5v5? I'm going to take it to Flats, because Flats, you haven't said anything for a while. I know you've been a skeptic of 5v5 as it is, so.
I mean, I've said this many, many, many times.
Hey guys, SVB here. Just going to quickly interrupt this episode of the Group Up Podcast to say that if you're enjoying this content, then please do consider signing up for my Patreon to support me directly. It's really amazing because it allows me to keep making content like this carefree, regardless of how many views Overwatch does or doesn't get. I know no one likes sellout ads, but chances are if you've listened until this far in, then you're at least somewhat enjoying the content. So please do consider at least leaving a like, subscribe, and a comment underneath the video on YouTube. It really does help. But that's it for me. Now back to the discussion.
I thought the first Overwatch 2 playtest we saw in like April looked meh at best. Then we saw the one in September with the pro players playing it, and it looked what would be about 6 months better. And I think that was an improvement. But if you took that 6 months of improvement of 5v5 to 5v5 and instead made it 6v6, would the game have looked worse or better? I don't think it would have looked any worse, but could have looked even better. Because taking away one tank, fundamentally, we all know is a big part of their concerns are queue times. People don't want to play tank. People don't want to play tank because it's not fun. It's not fun. You don't cater to the tank role in any way, shape, or form. And other roles, especially like, would complain that they're catering to the tank role, but that wasn't the case. It was more of everybody wants their heroes buffed, and the tank role had the least amount of players and got the shortest end of the stick. And I say this now, and I've tweeted this a few times over the last year. The reason nobody complains that especially main tank and the tank role overall sucks is because there's no one left to yell about it. Name me a handful of loud tank players still left in the community. There really isn't that many. And I mean, like, you'll have like, regular players that yell, but there's really not many content creators left. There's really not that many pro players left that really yell about it. There really isn't. There's no one left to complain. So the role has just kind of just deteriorated. It's just not had its fun. And there's a lot of things to make it fun. And I think, for example, this experimental show that there's definitely life still in it. But instead, the decision was made to go to one tank to make it more shootery, make it more like a, traditional shooter. 1. 2, the idea being that if you take away a tank, all of a sudden you have double the amount of players in the role. So if you're having long queue times because you don't have enough tank players, you can double the role of the queue, the amount of people in queue immediately just by taking one away. Boom! Now you have two times the amount of people that you needed to queue up for. So it should be faster, right? Well, I don't know if that'll actually be the case, because if people actually liked playing tank and for the things that actually were enjoyable about it, controlling the fight, pacing, those things that made Overwatch, I don't think are going to have the same thing in Overwatch 2. And you kind of saw that in the playtest, realistically. And I don't think that playtest looked any better at 5v5 than it would have been 6v6. And I kind of still think to this day, it's a cop-out.
That's, I think, entirely fair. I do want to bring two, again, as the resident devil's advocate, I want to bring 2 points that you, Flats, or anyone else can respond to. One being that this is, again, part of the disconnect, because high-level players frequently complain about, well, tank is the most impactful role, and tanks are always giga buffed. So do you
Queue it up, then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you just say, well, are they just complaining because it's not their role, or do you think there's any truth to it? And B, like, that what you're saying is all true. Tank is not fun, but then it's like, we've been here for 5 years now and they haven't made tank fun. So where do they go with it?
Are you asking where they should go with it?
Yeah, like I this is an open-ended question. Like, just feedback on the. Well, I just wanted to throw the idea out that
every tank needs to have its strong point. Like, there needs to be something it's good at, not everything. Because if you have to do everything, then it beats everything else. Then you have two situations where you have to make it terrible at everything, but can do everything at once. So it's good just because it can do everything at once. It just can't do anything well. Or 2, you make it just super strong at doing one specific thing or something along those lines. Like if Ryan was, like how he was in kind of an experimental, extremely strong up close, right? And I actually think the reason why Winston wasn't OP in the experimentals because Reaper super buff
Yeah,
was
Reaper was super strong.
actually insane. I talked about it. I think that Winston honestly could have been better than Ryan in the experimental if Reaper didn't get the ultra buff that he got, because those Mei walls aren't as effective. Zarya, you could play double bubble. Zarya could right click up on top of the Mei wall. She could literally get around it. Just like Diva could. You can play Diva. Obviously, Diva had the crazy flight. There could have been so much more potential. And I think the biggest problem is a philosophical problem where X plus Y equals Z in this case, but they're not accounting for the A coefficient, which would be the support nerf that also came along with the buff to X, because they think that buffing X and then Y is like the nerf to some other tank that's too strong equals new meta. No, but you also nerfed a certain support that kept that hero meta, so it didn't go anywhere. It just feels worse to play. Like, everything is still the same. You could actually change the entire tank meta right now with 2 or 3 nerfs to other roles, not even a tank change, because those other roles influence how they're played so much. And that's why tank players don't have fun, because they're stuck in a certain meta for months on end. Because what ends up happening is, for example, Orisa and Goats, I call it the Orisa problem, where Orisa got 19 micro buffs because she wasn't being played because Goats. Then we get flipped to 222 and she's just an absolute giga chad, and they can't understand why. What happened? Well, you took away the extra support, you took away the extra tank that ran over the Orisa. The same thing has happened with Hog. The same thing has kind of happened with Pharah. Now, Pharah, I think, honestly has like a few other things that are keeping her from being just like the most absolute dominant shit. But especially if you're a DPS player, if you try to play Cassidy versus a Pharah on like Route 66, and they just sit at the skybox on the far side, what the hell do you do about that? You can hit every single shot in a row for 3 clips and she won't move. Regardless, though, that's not the point. The point is we make all these micro 5% changes, which, by the way, take months. At one point, I want it to be clear, we were promised that changes were working to the point where we were going to get balance changes every 2 weeks, and we got that for about 2 to 3 months, and then said, fuck it, we're done. That was too hard, and moved on. And now the last patch we've got is still August 9th.
Yeah. And it did
A whole
Regardless.
season ago.
And it did nothing. It did
About
literally
to hit
nothing.
the new
by the way.
year.
So again, I
Regardless.
really want to distill this so that, because I know how people are when they listen. Like, so what's the point? So I want to ask that question: is what do you think needs to be permanent, basically? Because these balance changes will always inevitably come and go, right? They will fuck it up. There's going to be new heroes. There'll always be like a new hero they drop that fucks some shit up. But what in your mind, again, this is open-ended, can be flats, anyone else, what in your minds needs to always be core Overwatch, right? Because there's like whatever hero you put in, League of Legends is always the same, right? So what is like core that Overwatch must always remain?
AoE
Winston.
healing cannot dominate the game. AoE
Oh, you're
healing
talking-
and
yeah.
healers are the number one thing that right now, every tank that was the original tank has everything that made it great in the game, but it gets hard capped because AoE healing was overbuffed. They put heroes in the game that not only required almost no mechanics, but countered all of the decision making and space taking by main tanks, because the heal aura of Brig, for example, and I keep coming back to this because I'm telling you, the second that is gone, and that is what you saw in last October, people forgot, or they saw one Brig nerf and they stopped playing her, and the game was all of a sudden glorious at high level play. When you have, and this is why I've really liked Violet's patch, when you have AoE healers that their heal aura counters the entire distance of a one rotate. Like, think about, remember the clip we had of Briggs heal the volume of the spear? Like, it covers more than a Ryan or Winston can jump or rotate in a single rotation just by being active, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the main tanks, they all still have, and whoever says tanks create the meta, supports have created majority of the metas in the game. Moth, Goats was because of Brig and the Lucio sound barrier buffs. The one time that supports didn't make the meta was when Double Shield came out first, and Orisa and Sigma's shields and sustain were so good that that time it was not a support. 100% tip the hat. But if you want to maintain core Overwatch, you cannot let AoE healing dominate the game as much as it does with Brig. And I think it needs the farthest it should go is Moira. Moira went right up to that limit, and I think that she is actually an essential part to the game because you need that character for low-level play, but she had a very fair drop-off at high-level play because good Anas were able to kite well, and tank players knew where to kite and hold spacing. Like, what made that tournament so great is that spacing became important again.
Very.
And you just didn't get countered by certain DLC heroes existing. And that's just the reality. People can say it's true or not. The proof's been in the pudding for 3 years. If you disagree at this point, you're just uneducated. Tough shit. Sorry. No, tough shit.
Freedo,
Very true.
Do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I think Sam's right. And I'm trying to think back to like all the history of the game, and it's not. I think some people when they hear Sam talk like that, they get personally offended, like he hates their role or something. But
No,
it's reading the whole game is the truth. And I think I'm trying to think of it because like when BAP finally became good after October of last year, right? Like I took an SR hit because all of a sudden now the thing that I was best at is creating engagements that like my team could use and punishing space, right? What Sam's describing about like healers like that being strong is that wherever they exist, they own, they win. So it's like if you go engage into them, so this is like Sam's and Flat's earlier point put together. If you think you're going to main tank into a thing that can't die to a main tank, you can't pick a main tank. It's that simple, basically.
rock,
It's like
paper, scissors.
like that's. I always try to like put things on a cute little bow, and like if I got one skill, it's trying to make sentences like that. But it's like there's no point to do that. So you should just poke them out, basically, is the point. Just play a shooter tank, because if you think you're winning the game by running into a lamp and self-heal and boots and get screwed, I'll shoot you in the head while you can't touch me. Like you just can't play that. And watching all the Moira, eventually mine numbs me. Like I definitely don't want like a Moira meta forever. But the point is like it's better to have spacing than not spacing. Like it's not like you wall off the Moira in those mirrors and like BAP could jump over it. Like there's the point. It's like I use an ability good, so now you're separated, and that's what like the foundation of main tanks is supposed to be, basically, where you're carving off an angle for the fight, making better engagements, and we just can't have that countered by a role that's like made to not die or hold any position effectively because they have the cooldowns to do it. I don't know. I'm going in circles now, but yeah, I think I just agree is the point.
Yeah. So I want to kind of then again distill it down as well. So we're saying spacing is Freedo's point, main tanking kind of Flats' point, where it's like main tanking has to matter, and Samito's point about AoE healing. Because look, I don't as much as we're the Overwatch therapy group. We meet periodically and we're kind of like, vent our problems to each other. I also want us to be relatively optimistic and relatively practical, because we're not going to 5v5, right? Like we're going to 5v5.
Yeah.
I don't see a way to go back. So with that in mind, we've got to, as content creators, we contribute the best we can to the conversation, right? Not just sit here and be like, what a dumb decision. So with 5v5,
we can't test anything.
No, I can't. But like, what do you theoretically? When we're having this conversation, like, what is it that must remain in 5v5? Like, when we transition over, what's the things that have to stay, and what's the things that have to change?
I think tanks need to control the space, which sounds like they're supposed to do that, but everything we're saying about supports is that, and like I've said this directly to them as well, it's like it feels like supports are better tanks than tanks are. It feels like tanks are just bigger DPS, right? Because between Brig and BAP, like when I play those characters, I'm happy as a clam. I'm like, oh, I can hold a position. It like really helps the team. This feels familiar. Like, and my support SRs, like it's way easier for me personally to play support than it is to play tank, because I just feel like I need to hit shots all the time as tank, and I hate it. So I think that SV said something pretty important earlier that maybe is like a good way for us to nail this, but you said League of Legends and Riot, like they keep a foundational core to that, and I think most competitive games that are trying to be competitive games do this. And I think we need to define the tank role explicitly, not have it so open-ended that it's like, well, maybe they're shooter characters sometimes, maybe they're this, maybe they're that. Like define what it's trying to do and have different flavors on that, especially if you're only gonna have one tank, right? Like I think that's important, that like we start to limit what roles can do a little more, which I think robs some of the imagination from the devs, because I think they get really hyped about all the
potential beauty of it. And I think if we had like Nathan on the call, in some ways, like he leans a little more towards like, open queue shenanigans, and me and him always go back and forth on that. But like, so there's a lot of players that think we're like robbing the fun of it. But I think that's just the truth of like, if we want it to feel like a competitive game or not. Like, do you want, like, we just need different modes. That's what I think. Different modes and formats. What, like, if you want to have wacky fun, like, let that be a casual mode. But we know what the competitive game looks like. We know what makes it play well. Let's just let it do its thing instead of trying to have it do everything. You're not gonna be 10 different games. You're gonna be one game. So just be that game better, more reliably, and offer those other casual experiences elsewhere, which is what I hope for Overwatch 2 with all the PvE and wacky modes and stuff. But we need a big boy competitive format is the TLDR, in my opinion, because the balance alone is going to struggle to do this. What I'm explaining, like, it's too easy for a hero or two to just like hard mark the meta into a different direction, and we can't just expect balance to fix that, even rapid balance, in my opinion. That's my rant. I'm done.
Sam, Flats.
Flats, you go first, because I have a very interesting take here.
Ooh.
I'm actually curious what your tank's going to be, but here's the thing. 5v5 is going to play so fundamentally different. It's going to be almost impossible for us to say anything. They could go the route where the tank is a Giga Chad, like basically the focal point of your team. I don't know if there's a similar thing in like League or whatever, but like basically you're leading in on that tank. You're making sure that you're enabling them, you're supporting them. You're playing DPS or support, whatever. Like, you're trying to get frags or try to, make plays, but at the same time, they're like, that is the focal point of your team, and that's that star player. And that's fun for the tank role, probably because, you feel like you have an impact, there's a responsibility to it, but otherwise, you're just going to be a little bit tankier DPS. And at that point, looking at the current game, don't think that'll be that fun. I think that'll be, not what you play Overwatch for, I guess. You're just basically, instead of getting 2 shots to die, you're taking 4 shots to die, and I don't think it's gonna end up having a good time with it. So it's hard to say what exactly we should keep, but realistically, my personal opinion is, with Overwatch League playing on Overwatch 2 next year, and let's assume it starts somewhere between April and June at the latest, even with a delay, there should be a beta somewhere where not only Overwatch 2 is, Overwatch League players are playing on it, but there should be tier 2, there should be tier 3, like high level players, streamers, content creators, etc. Even if it's only for a few hours a week. One, let us break the game, see what's wrong with it, see if there's things that can be improved, etc. See if like what things are going well, how things can be balanced, and maybe it's not totally the way they thought. For example, I think there was some feedback. I don't know if it was Aaron or Jeff thought that Sombra wasn't going to be that strong, and then the pros played it, and they basically had a Sombra pact to not play Sombra because it was that broken. And so like there needs to be a way for those Overwatch League players to practice off of just scrim time next year, as well as tier 2 players who are going to get left in the dust, not being able to play. And I think overall, like, it's almost impossible, and this was a big concern 2 years ago, so I don't know why it's not a concern now, when there was a major disconnect in between the ranked ladder and Overwatch League, and how players couldn't get practice in their downtime. And that's also a bad thing for your game overall, because how are you gonna have all these people that want to watch the Overwatch League and be that player, or like try to get better or whatever, and like when you queue up your own ranked, it looks nothing like that. And never mind, there was no tournaments going on for something different, like, oh, that's Overwatch League, but here's this other tournament and your games kind of look like this, and this is also fun, like it's not like an alternative. So like, to be honest with you, I don't really have a good take on what should be kept or what something you should focus on in Overwatch 2. I think that it would just be a grave mistake to not have something playable, like a closed beta, by the time Overwatch League starts. That's the only thing I can say about Overwatch 2 at this point.
I'm going to rip off the Band-Aid here and just say the elephant in the entire gaming industry's room here. First of all, 5v5, I think there's more to it than if I had a guess, I think they're trying to do Overwatch Mobile, and clearly 6v6 just did not work that well on the Switch. So I think that could be one reason for it. But we are trying to solve problems of our own creation because of 5v5. Flats was completely right about the main tank role. Like, the reason why no one plays tank is because everyone's left that wanted to play it. My best friends, a guy named Blake, in our Discord, we all play Warzone together. He's been a Ryan player forever. And when I tell you the man sounded like a kid at Christmas morning playing that experimental Reinhardt patch while I played Ana for him, he was like, dude, I missed this, but like I can't come back and play because my support's never heal me, never do this. And after playing in that experimental tournament, I know deep down that 5v5 is a grave mistake. And the only reason we are even considering having to do it is because our balance team are incompetent. They are. And I don't like saying that, but I'm sorry. It has to be said because we can't actually make this game better. We have continuously had to react to problems of our own creation. And while you could say for roll queue and a lot of these other things that had to happen over the years, right? Well, it's not just because of game balance. It could be X, Y, and Z. But you know what? There's one common factor to a lot of these things that have had to come into the game, and that is poor hero balance. These guys, and I am sorry, have no idea what they're doing. And if you could superset as well, if you could figure out how to balance your game, it wouldn't be a problem. It brings me no pleasure to say that. In fact, it breaks my heart because I don't think anyone enjoys coming on here and saying some people need to get some help or like a new team needs to get hired. But at what point do we say these guys just don't know what they're doing? And I've thought about 5v5 a lot. But after playing that tournament and seeing what Overwatch truly is, I know in my heart that if you take away a player, the game loses its depth. I know that it loses a bit of its shine. And at this point, after we've already been watered down with AoE healers that do too much, and that is the number one thing gatekeeping this game's success, right? We saw great queue times in October. We don't need that. You don't want to know why we had good queue times in October? Because the support and tank role opened up and they didn't have... I saw this conversation come up in chat a minute ago where somebody said, well, you can just go full poke against Brig and beat her. But how comps are selected at high level play, and this is what we had to really experiment with in contenders, is like, it's kind of like a chain of rock, paper, scissors. Well, X beats Y, and that's what forces it. So if Brig forces the main tanks out, right? Like Reinhardt, Winston especially, then you swap to a poke comp to beat it. You can't then swap back into Reinhardt because they'll just swap back to Brig instead of going Brig Zen. And a lot of times Brig still consistently works in poke comps because there's so much peel in the game. So it is hard to balance it. I'm not trying to say that, oh, it's so easy to balance this game. It is very difficult. But 5v5 is another symptom of bad balancing, period, end of story. And it is a solution that no one asked for, that is created because the balance team needs a crutch because they can't figure out how to balance this game right now. We had to leave you cannot tell me that one of the biggest reasons we left open queue was, and I personally like roll queue. I think roll queue did so much for quick play. I think it is an essential part of the game to make the game good. But you cannot tell me that they did not rush out open queue because they couldn't find a way to get rid of Goats meta in Overwatch League, and they were not the laughing stock of the gaming industry. This balance team cannot do it. They hard throttle the success of every part of Overwatch, and until they are changed, or we get a player council to come in, because look, I'm sure our hero designers are incredibly creative people and talented people. I'm not taking that away. You can be creatively genius, right, and still be such a great asset to Overwatch. But if you can't figure out a way to implement the genius of your creativity in a way that maintains fair play and keeps the game open to its core fundamentals, you need help. And 5v5, and this is strictly after playing that tournament and for the first time in maybe a year and a half since the 5v5 announcement, that was the first time we've played true Overwatch. We've played Game of the Year Overwatch. What made the game the only team-based shooter game to win Game of the Year in 15 years, that's what made it great. And unfortunately, 5v5 is again going to cap the ceiling of the game, which I think we need to be doing the opposite of. We need to try to uncap that ceiling and let things go wild. Let there be a learning curve. Let people come back and enjoy playing main tank throughout the whole ranks. That's what made Overwatch beautiful. And how many times do we have to create a problem through bad game balance, solve it with an even bigger problem, and then have to continuously react to the problems of our own creation? That's all we've done for 3 years. And
Sam, I think
go ahead.
I was
I'm
gonna say,
done.
I think you made a great point there actually for a sec. I don't want you to go too far. That's why.
No, I need help.
About
I
the player
ramble
council.
too much, so I need y'all's help to help me
Your player
articulate
council
this.
thing. I think working in business and working in like actually not only like I went to college and like actually worked like in an office and that in actual like a literal fucking cube and shit. I think a lot of companies have this problem, and it's something you're actually taught very early in like business school, but because it's so important to try to always keep in mind, is something called groupthink. Groupthink basically is when a group of people start to over time all think the exact same way. So like when they present a project or when or in this case, they're talking about balance or philosophy or whatever. If the team has been there if people have been there for years, they've all worked together for years and they've always established that, oh, this is a problem, or oh, this is let's say pre-roll queue, we didn't want to balance things a certain way because of XYZ, right? And they've always had that philosophy. They then pass that philosophy to anyone else that comes in and is lower ranked than them, to the point where all of a sudden almost everybody is on the same page and everyone says, oh yeah, no, like this is great, this is great. But if you took people from outside that bubble, they would go, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's honestly like not their fault. It's kind of a psychology thing where after working with the same group of people on the same problems over and over and over, it can happen very easily, where it's like you can't come up with a solution, or you start to think about like solutions that have worked in the past and you all agree that they've worked in the past, and like that's what you keep moving towards instead of developing new ideas or challenging the current fix or the current ideas, for risk of causing conflict. You don't want to be the guy in the room when there's 20 people at the table and everybody's agreeing and you're the one dude who's going, yeah, this is stupid as shit. Like it's kind of intimidating. And actually, I think this part of my NDA is over, hopefully. I tweeted at Spectorate and he didn't, I didn't get any DMs, so I think we're good. When I used to work for Boston, I was very early in my career. I was only there like
You told the story
yeah,
last time.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, he tweeted back and he was good with it. I'll never forget that, because that room, the looks were intense. Like, shut the fuck up, But nobody wanted to talk about it. And I know what we were talking about. It was because we were 19th out of 20 on a category, and I was like, I think we're 19th out of 20 because of this reason. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, no, I agree, actually. And the whole room was just like, huh? Like, what do you mean? But everybody's sitting there like, yeah, it's just problems, team. They'll figure it out eventually. It's like everyone's trying to come up with a different problem, like a solution, instead of fixing the fucking problem. And it's that problem that everyone in the room has now developed, that because they've been working together for 10 years. And nobody wants to step on each other's toes. Everyone's been to Carol's 15th birthday party. They've met Jake's wife, and they actually went to their bachelor party 7 years ago. Like nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to say, no, you're being an idiot. And I wonder if that's a problem, where it's like there's certain things that should be challenged. Like, for example, there has to be something with like us not getting any balance changes since August. Like, there has to be a decision somewhere that they're satisfied with the decision, that the game is balanced. And it must have been a majority of people that say, no, this looks balanced. The data looks balanced, right? Like, all the pick rates are across the board. Yeah, maybe in GM, Ryan doesn't get played that much and Winston doesn't get played that much, but they get played a ton down here, so that works. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, that's good enough.
You gotta remember, Flats, they're going through some stuff, dude. So I wouldn't take
any. This was before all these problems. This is where I'm not gonna let you get away with that.
This year, though, this
year. Okay, but the balance problem is the history of Overwatch, right?
Yeah,
we cannot let these people off the hook for that. And I'm not trying to be an asshole, and I'm so sorry if I come across like that to anyone in the Overwatch community. But someone has to freaking say it before they kill the next game too. All right, it's the core issue. Almost always you can come back to their balanced philosophy. And the reality is, and this is the one reason where I didn't actually like Aaron Keller stepping up, no matter how good he actually could be as a leadership we haven't seen. You want to bring someone from the outside in corporate America because they break that kind of thinking, Flats. And I think you're completely right. And and Freedo, again, I'm so sorry to cut you off. I'm not trying to be a jerk here. So I apologize if that's how I come off.
You make me look like the nice guy.
I know.
This is good for me.
Yeah, it's just whatever. I'll fall on this sword, man. It's the balance team. These guys have no clue what they're doing.
Here's the thing, though. As a guy who's been to these Blizzard events and been the one guy in the entire interview room asking real questions, I know exactly what Flats is talking about because I am that guy. I'm compulsed to do this, to talk to the most powerful man in the entire game and say, I don't agree. I've done this. So I'm trying to be fair to them because I know they're going through stuff. So I don't think it's like, oh, the game's done, so we're not bouncing it anymore. I don't think that's what it is. I think they're on full steam, full hands on deck for Overwatch 2. And, we need to know more about that coming in the next year. But like, listen, I totally understand what you guys are saying when it's like, we need outside voices and they get ignored because that was my career. So up again, and I've seen the yes man attitude towards people that are untouchable with their opinions. And they keep going down with the ship saying these opinions are good. And I'm like, I saw this as a bad idea. Like, my favorite one is hero pools, which in 2 seconds, that's not what I asked for. Oh, but it's hero bans. No, it's not. I know what that's going to do. Oh, but it's really good. Oh, was it? I mean, I'm sorry, but at some point we got to say scoreboard. Okay. Like take the L, but anyway, so that's just my little defense. Like I'm on both sides of this where I'm trying to be objective, but like, this is my life. Like being that guy who's like willing to make everyone mad. I suck in corporate scenarios because I don't play politics. Like I just flat out do not do it. Right. So it's good I work for myself because I make everyone pissed and uncomfortable because I like this. I like being like,
that's what it takes to be great. That's what greatness takes. It's not easy as everyone's saying yes to each other.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Look, I hate to be the party pooper, but I have to be the party pooper because, again, to devil's advocate, would the devs be looking at this podcast, this conversation, the conversations we have as content creators and say, well, what about you guys in groupthink? What if are you guys the group thinkers?
We have years of anecdotal evidence backing up what we're saying. That's the difference, right? Like, and look,
we don't work with each other on a daily basis, though. It's kind of different. It's like, yeah, there can be a collective group think, but I don't think that's I think groupthink doesn't really. I don't think that's the word for it. I think it's a different word when an entire like culture or a community of people think one thing. Groupthink's more of like project.
Okay,
team,
so they might call us an echo chamber.
It is both.
They might call us an echo chamber.
Echo chamber is fair. Echo chamber could definitely be fair, but here's the thing, though, and you definitely have a grounds to stand on there. Don't like let me take that away. You can definitely sit there and say, hey, maybe you have an echo chamber here. Like, have you ever thought about like that? No, like you're probably right. There is, but have we ever gotten a chance to actually have it our way? Not really.
No.
So. We have an echo chamber of things that we can yell about, but they don't ever really happen. We don't have that power. We don't have that control. And the few times where we do get that control, it seems like we make it work out pretty well, And I hate to say it. I really do. But it's like, I feel like every time we have one of those situations where we get to do something and it works out for us, it almost I don't want them to look bad for it, but it's like people will weaponize that against them and it almost makes them not want to do it again. Like my personal theory is maybe, we couldn't get a serious patch or like a serious-esque patch, like kind of designed by creators. Because what if it was good? What if it was better?
It would be.
Then like that would look bad. And like nobody's trying to have that happen. Like we'd rather have everybody look like good together. We're all want the same goal, We just have different ways of going about it. I'm sure there's back end stuff that we're not even allowed to talk about or know about, But like that's never the goal. Like the goal is always to like work forward. And it crushes me because how we can look at other communities like Apex, and Apex has its share of problems, but their community is saying that they're not getting enough content. What a fucking joke. Like you're at the grocery store and they ran out of Mountain Dew and you're like, damn it, I'm dying of thirst here. What the heck? And we're in the middle of the desert. You
Yeah.
know, like it's not even different worlds, but it pains me, and I do say this with a grain of salt. In the last 4 months, there's been a lot more communication, a lot more working together, a lot more attempts. So things are changing. So I don't want to say it's not. I'm just afraid of not like not too little too late, but like going forward, keeping that trend going, ramping it up, taking it to the next level, and pushing even further beyond. But I feel like other games have these like really ingrained connections with their community and their content creators and their pro players, and they try to act on things faster and they try to make it move, and they don't make radical decisions just like on their own, and they like, for example, you know, Apex dragged itself out of the dirt by asking its players, why do you not want to play anymore and what do you love about this game, and pulling it out from there. And now I think they had $100,000 tournament yesterday from a Twitch. Was it Twitch Rivals or something? I don't know if it was like Twitch or something that had $100,000 tournament for Apex, and there was thousands of eyes on it. It looked like it was a ton of fun. We all want that, you know. We all want that back. So it's like it's a hard dynamic, you know. It's not easy, and actually at that point, it kind of is office politics, but almost between like people that are inside and people that are outside. And how can we help each other even more? Because you know, things are definitely changing, and it's a tough time right now for them. Like, let's not like undermine that in any way, shape, or form. I mean, we've kind of agreed to not like, you know, go too heavy on that in this podcast. But
have to
it
acknowledge
is
it.
we have to acknowledge it.
Yeah,
You know?
we have to talk about this.
Yeah, and like where we can go from there. I almost want to know. Are they short staffed? Even like more like I know they're probably short staffed in Overwatch 2 because there's a lot of openings, but even Overwatch 1, were they already short staffed? Like I don't know if like is like I would like to know the metrics between, let's say, the whole Overwatch team and the whole Apex team. What is the numbers of people that work on it? I wonder what
Yeah.
that would look like.
I don't know if there's a way for us to see that, but I think you're completely right on a lot of that. And I will say though, if you're working at a company, your priority number one should be to do what's best for your game. And if what's best for your game is actively listening to your content creators more, and you're not willing to do that, then I beg the question, should you be there? Right? And again, I'm not going to hammer that one home because I don't think anyone wants to say things like that. But
Yeah.
like the reality is it feels to me like a lot of, here's the problem. I've seen a lot of terrible takes from content creators too. So
Oh, yeah.
on that regard, I completely understand why they would want to just say no, because it's just, there's been some of the worst takes I've ever seen. Right. And through no fault of people's own, they just don't know what they're talking about. But in terms of like actual staff on multiple teams, I think it'd be really cool to see a way for that to happen. And generally as well, turnover when it comes to big like company changes usually takes like about a year or two. Right. So I think that you're starting to see in the 4 months, like genuine effort come out. And there's so many, like, first of all, let's talk about the skins that are about to come out. Holy shit. Those look phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like those artists are kicking ass. The Halloween event was great too. I don't mean to go off topic, but you know, it's going to be definitely take some time and tough for turnover to really come through. And
Yeah.
I think what happened at Blizzard is really truly unfortunate. Luckily, most of that didn't have anything to do with the Overwatch team. And to any Blizzard people that are watching that, you know, I'm sure that any content creator who wants to be reasonable with you guys will absolutely tip the hat towards that and say that's unfortunate. But to me personally, I'm only going to talk about things for this year because a lot of our problems come back from before all this stuff happened, and we can't be solution based without being realistic with ourselves. So that's just one thing I want to throw out there. But definitely tip the hat to anyone working at Blizzard right now. I'm sure you guys are all 99.9% of you are phenomenal people who bust their ass, and we do appreciate that.
Yeah, and I
Yep,
think that's a really
very
good
true.
sentiment to kind of bring up at this point, because I think there's a few things that we should acknowledge is, yeah, the undercurrent of all this is the incredible, you know, turmoil and social upheaval that's taking place in Activision Blizzard right now. And again, as Sam said, one thing we should point out is, as much as we are kind of vocal, and most of the community I've seen is, you know, vocal and actively critical of Activision Blizzard, Team 4 Overwatch have not, to my knowledge, been explicitly implicated in any of that. There's no actual thing saying that this was happening at Team 4, or, you know, people or members of Team 4 were doing any of this kind of stuff. So that's something
Sounds like
we
the
should
opposite,
acknowledge.
actually. It's
Yeah.
to remind, but it sounds like actively pushing the other direction.
Exactly.
Which is, as we just said about groupthink and everything, is not easy to do, because you have to be
No.
like, you guys are pigs, and that's not fun to say, right? Like to your coworker or something. Like, so
especially
not
when there's so
easy.
many higher ups doing this stuff, right? Like when it's coming down from Bobby Kotick down, it's even harder to resist then, right? When it's like the top dog is coming in and setting a sort of cultural trend. So to push back on that, you know, deserves incredible kudos, because we obviously criticize them when we can, but we should also commend them for being a stand-up community and a dev team that we can be proud of, I think, in that sense, right? Like whatever our grievances might be from the game balance side, as people, you know, they seem to be top-notch, exact kind of people we like to see in the gaming community. So that must be said. And obviously it makes their lives difficult to work under those environments. So there's a lot we are just not privy to. We just don't, we won't understand, we'll never understand the pressures taking place in the office. But we still have to have our discussions, and we will never know. So we have to kind of assume and make comments on that front. So, sorry, Flats, is there something you want to say? I just want to set, I wanted to set up the next.
Really quick.
Go for it.
Hopefully he doesn't get mad at me. Because I do think they deserve the credit, and I think it's deserving to say something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say Andy, who those who don't know is one of their community managers, Andy and Jody, both of them, when everything was happening last week, because if you didn't know, this weekend, they've been, you know, on strike, unionizing. There was the union busting emails and all, you know what I'm talking about, like all that shit went down. Andy, I sent him a message like, you know, like this has been like a lot of fun, like this tournament's, you know, been great, and he's actually said to me, not quote unquote, because I don't want to like open it up, but roughly, basically, it was like, this has been a really hard weekend, but seeing all the smiles on streams and everybody having so much fun in this tournament has genuinely made it worth it. And you know, like that kind of hits hard, you know, because I knew Andy was working on this back in September when he came to me before it. Never mind all the planning before that. So this is probably, that tournament was probably planned 6 months in advance, you know, to happen. And the payoff, and especially the timing of the payoff, they feel it, and they you know what I mean. And like a lot of that, you know, a lot of those people that work there genuinely want the best, you know what I mean. And then like that doesn't take away from what, like our conversation we're having, because we all want to be objective and, you know, and be constructive and have criticism and talk about certain things. But at the same time, though, I think it's important to acknowledge that like, even though everything that is happening, like they still saw some of our like POVs, whether it was mine, Sam, I think you were streaming yours. There was a lot of, there was like 4, 5, 6 streamer teams, I think. I know Flex had a team, Freedo, you had a team. There's a lot of POVs going around, and I'm sure they jumped around and looked at a lot of different POVs and saw everybody having fun. That they felt something from that, and I think that needs to be kind of acknowledged as like, there's not the cold, heartless entity of Blizzard, but the people that work in it, the warm fuzziness of that, you know.
And they deserve
Absolutely.
that. Seriously,
Yeah.
they really do.
And that's where the difficulty really lies in kind of separating those, because on an individual level, I think most of our interactions with the dev team have been overwhelmingly positive, right? Like I think maybe you could say there's a few incidents here or there, but on a person-to-person level, the dev team have been fantastic. Like you said, Flats, Andy, the new community manager, has been doing a phenomenal job since he's joined. And that doesn't necessarily infringe upon the criticisms we make. And I know particularly, you know, when someone hears Sam call out like, hey, the dev team are incompetent, need to change, I think a lot of people kind of feel uncomfortable by that sentence, because they feel like it's a personal attack on their like who they are as an individual, but it's much more to do with the body of work, right? It's like the criticism is at the body of work.
It's tough because, and I want to speak on this again, because I really don't want to come across as that jerk. And I like it when these decisions that hard throttle the game's success, it hurts no one more than the good people who have busted their ass to make Overwatch a successful game. And hearing that from Vlad's about brought me to tears a minute ago, because I think all of us, like, I can't, like, it's been tough for us, you know, like as content creators in the last 2 years, 3 years, even like sticking by Overwatch, like kind of no matter what. And like, this is our game, this is our home. It breaks my heart to think about some of the people who have committed their lives to working at Blizzard for this game, And just to have their success be hard throttled, like it crushes me to think that. And I don't even know how to go from there. Like that is just my personal opinion, and that's what it takes to get these people back on top. And I'm not saying I want to see anyone go. I want a change of thinking, because we haven't. This is the first time, and I think this is what's so essential to getting through to this. For the first time in 3 years of AoE healing dominating the game, you could go back to Siegel's State of Overwatch video, and he'll be talking about AoE healing back then too. For the first time in 3 years, you saw the fundamentals of AoE healing get directly attacked in a patch, and the game immediately felt 10 times better for every role. And when it's been the same thing for multiple years, us as content creators have an obligation to say the truth and what we think the truth is, because if we're too afraid of identifying the core issue because it might make people uncomfortable or something like that, and to a degree, obviously, there's the way it needs to be said. That's my biggest flaw, is that sometimes I just get out of hand with what I say, and I know it, and I'm working on it. But we have to be able to identify that in a healthy way so that we can make the careers of everyone at that company, in our community, better. And that's where we're counting on you as a community to keep us in check, right? It's checks and balances, baby. That's how we do it.
It's all a system.
Whenever we say something dumb, which I do all the time, I need Uncle Freedo to give me a smack on the head, right? And he does do that. Thank you, Freedo. I appreciate it. But it's really important to get that point across. We don't want to see anyone suffer either. We want to see the best for Overwatch and its development. And I know what we say, especially me, what I say sometimes can come across as harsh. That is not the intent. And I just want that to be completely clear to everyone. I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but that's just
like sometimes we step out of line. I think is the kind of thing. Like sometimes we as content creators step out of line. We get emotional. We say things, but I think maybe hopefully I'm not making this sound a little bit too rosy, but it's kind of like a family situation, right? Like we're part of the same family.
Yeah.
The community, says stuff to us. We say stuff to the community. The devs say stuff to us. The devs say stuff to the community. We're kind of feedbacking. Sometimes we step out of line. Sometimes we say the wrong things, but ultimately we want the same end goal.
It's all part of growth.
But on that growth. Exactly. On that note, Freedo, there's two questions. One I was going to say is there anything that that you've heard here that has stepped out of line? Samito said, I want Uncle Freedo to give me a slap.
Yeah, I was getting ready to. So I'm gonna combine this in two things. So I think to make a general push forward into looking towards next year. Everyone who's watching the show, have a happy new year, but drive safe, take care of yourself. 2021 was kind of a train wreck, and hopefully 2022, as Overwatch fans, we have a lot of good things to look forward to. Now I'm going to combine some things Flat said, and then Sam's balance anger as well in this. I didn't really pep up too much to talk about 5v5, but I think a truth that sometimes I think higher level players forget is that when tank balance is good in 6v6, the queue times at higher tiers are good, but I think it's a general trend that players just play less tank overall. So yes, if it's less fun, less people play, but just in general, it's always been hard for tank to be a good sell. So they've tried every version. Tanks have been OP, they've been terrible, they've been all over the place. You don't have to pick any if you don't want. You have to pick two. Like we've tried every single thing, and so I think 5v5 is probably going to be necessary. Like there's just no way around it, and we have to give them the opportunity to impress us. Now I will say, between the tournament, I feel like I've grown to agree with Flat's arguments more as we've had a few shows on this now. Like I was stronger on 5v5, but now I'm seeing the experimental card. I'm like, oh yeah, the tank play is pretty core to the game. So I go back and forth on it, but I want to give them the opportunity to really show us Overwatch 2 is an update and a new game, and they're considering the things we're saying and have solutions for it. So far, it's a vague idea. That's what they showed us. It's you'll be kind of like COD. You like COD, right? Just run around the objective and play Overwatch COD. That'll be. It's yeah, kinda. That's fun. Maybe for the people who aren't playing. I don't know. So the ball's in their court in that degree. And the thing that I wouldn't co-sign with Sam on is the thing is that I think we badly need next year is more communication with the actual devs. And I'm privileged enough to have met some of these guys, and crucially, not when they're on camera.
because that is a very different thing when you're in Blizzard land. Let's just think about what it's like to work at Blizzard, the company whose alleged CEO allegedly, don't sue me, allegedly wrote the email for the scapegoat woman that they put out in front, and then said, wow, what an out of touch email to have written. Man, that person really needs to step down from their position. Okay, this is the level of manipulation we're talking about. Okay, so it's tough for this company to deal with a content creator who's a maniac like me calling out the head of the game saying, yeah, well, what about power creep? Yeah, I know you're showing us Overwatch 2 because there's the BlitzCon conference, but we got power creep right now. We're going to deal with power creep at some point. Hello, is this thing on? I know there's 20 reporters in here from Kotaku, but I represent the community. Hello. And like, I feel like the Lorax out there. I speak for the plebs, but nobody wants to listen. And then global warming happens and we all die, and now we have a content now. Like, I saw this coming, okay? Like, I wanted to deal with it years ago, and I got treated like the maniac in the family, like Chicken Little or something. That's how
Oh my God.
That's what it was like. So what we need to have.
I remember that night. I remember that night at BlizzCon. You were heated.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
I'm letting it
I feel like I
loose
missed
today,
out on
but-
some things.
Oh.
But the point is, when I've got to speak to these guys, and I think, like, if you got to hear how intelligent they are and the counterpoints they have and the considerations they have, like, it opens my eyes to, like, not be so steadfast in my beliefs. And that like, you know, I complain about ranked, but at the end of the day, we, like, a lot of people just want to jump on and play solo queue, right? And I'm just like, why can't we have both? That's it. Like, I'm trying to find those compromise points. So, you know, it's going to take Blizzard to open up a little bit to answer a hard question once in a while and not feel afraid of the community leads that call you on your BS, because that's when we get back to the Flats point of groupthink and all that. Then you're just going to make bad decisions and it'll take you longer to figure it out. And then you'll do a year of a new idea you thought was good, but it was bad the whole time and we wasted everybody's time. I don't want to be doing that next year is my point. Like, a lot of this stuff we can see coming ahead of time. Let's have real communication. Like, I feel spoiled because, like, we jumped over to cover Valorant when it first came out, and eventually didn't continue it. But it was a beautiful thing talking to Morello on that game, and I know he's like, well, one of a kind dude and whatnot, but like he was crucial in the League of Legends balancing, and just super down to earth. So I feel like kind of spoiled because I've seen the other side of what it looks like to have a dev just kind of speak freely and be like, I messed that up, you know, like be a human, you know what I mean? But Blizzard devs, I feel like there's like an overwhelming pressure of like some PR guy saying, you have to be perfect. You have to be perfect. You can't make a mistake. Don't you dare misspeak. Don't you dare say you made a bounce mistake. Don't you, it's like, we're just all gamers here. Like, I don't feel like we get to speak to the humans. And every time I get to speak to the humans, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Why can't I tell everybody how great you are? But no, you gotta like lie to me all the time. Yeah, okay, I'm getting upset, but right.
No,
exactly.
you're right.
So,
Though.
like,
You're right. Though.
So Sam, a little bit on the deep end with that. But what else is Sam supposed to think? He hasn't got to talk to you and know what you really think and how honest you are about the realities of this impossible complex machine you've built. Like, it's like Overwatch is like such a, I try to bring this back to like remind everybody, Overwatch is such a mad scientist type game that shouldn't exist. The idea that it can even be somewhat balanceable is a freaking miracle, right? The fact that we've ever had a meta where there's multiple comps you can play, like no other game works this way, by the way, like competitively speaking. It's amazing that we ever have any decent balance at all. So the expectation that it's going to be balanced well, I think is just over the top and like beyond reality, especially if you want new content. There's just like realities with that. But okay, that's like my long rant. I think a lot of this gets fixed with the communication we expect next year. Does that make sense? Like we got to feel like we're picking up some momentum with these problems, as opposed to the years we've had, which is like we're just shouting into a void, which is kind of like we are now. I will say we're privileged in the point that we're recording this show before we call tomorrow, so we have no idea. Like we're upset today, but I guess if Flatstick has a smile on when he turns his stream on, okay, like I'm gonna try to guess the timing of this. Like we can get off the call. He's not gonna be allowed to say anything, but like try to read his facial features. This is like how your Overwatch does news analysis. Okay, this is how I'm gonna look frame by frame and how happy because your Overwatch is under NDA too. But if Flats were to accidentally leak like a facial expression, maybe I'll analyze it freeze frame and be like, how happy was he to this question that the stream asked? Okay, so I'm going really off the walls here. I had another caffeine pill at some point, but we will know more soon that we can't tell you about for a while. But like at the moment, we're kind of like
this is
experimental cards are cute, but we need more. Go ahead.
Here's where the community gets frustrated though, because this is again where we as content creators, it's our job to balance this all. Because again, just to elaborate for anyone who maybe joined the stream late or is listening to this later, there is a creator call tomorrow for a select group of content creators, which we're fortunate to be of. Sam is for sitting out.
Yeah,
of this.
I just have to sign an NDA. I kind of forgot to do that yesterday.
Okay, so Sam has to sign his NDA and do his homework, but we otherwise get to sit in, and the devs will give us some information that we sadly cannot tell you. An NDA means that we cannot talk about it. So that's good from our end because we get some idea, and then we don't mold as much if we know what's coming. But this is where the community gets frustrated, because they're like, why don't you just tell us? And I don't really have the answer to that question. Flats is pointing.
I have a decent answer for it.
Go ahead.
And it's something I learned with the experimental patch. When you have too many people in the room talking, you can't hear anybody. If you have a room with 10 people, you can hear everybody. If you have a room with 1,000 people talking, can't hear a fucking word. Just nothing but noise. Now, the reason that kind of works is because they kind of can have, and I'm sure they're going to, I don't know if it's going to be this one, or I'm sure at some point in the future, we're going to be used as fucking guinea pigs, where they're going to like throw something at us and see how we react. And just like, oh, do you like that one? No.
Oh my god.
And and kind of like see how we react to it. Because if we all go like, oh hell no, like they might go like, let us rethink that one really quick. And it kind of keeps them from like making a bad mistake. And I learned that with the experimental because I wasn't allowed to tell people I was making the experimental. I was allowed to ask for ideas and stuff. And it was actually kind of like, they were like, we want you to ask your community like what kind of changes you'd make. I was like, but I can't tell them. Like, yes. I was like, okay. So basically I came up with this whole convoluted speech lie that like talked about little pieces that like I could talk. Like there was basically, the truth was somewhere in there, but you couldn't figure out where it was. Nobody ever figured it out. But basically it was a way to like kind of like see what the community could say. But the community was very loud. Though my whole chat was filled with people just writing like essays of what they want. Like, give Hog the ability to fly 3 separate heels, can throw armor packs. He actually doesn't shoot pellets anymore. It's actually Pharaoh rockets, and it's just like, I look at it and go, that is the stupidest fucking thing I've ever read in my whole life. But I can't like, I'm like, no, I'm not putting that in there. But then they'll get mad that I didn't put that in there. And it's the same concept where if everybody's yelling at them at the same time, if everyone in the room is screaming, they're going to shut down. They're just going to go, nope, not hearing anything. But if it's a small table, right, instead of just them at their table, you make the table a little bit bigger and add a few more people. You would now have an outside perspective, and those people are connected to the outside perspective. So that larger majority then has a group of people on the inside that kind of like talk and whatever. Not everybody agrees with it. Your opinion might not be the same as a content creator, but if let's say 80% of the community agrees on a certain thing, then most of those content creators probably agree on it as well, which means that they're going to be able to go to the table and be like, hey, this is a problem, or this is something we like. We want more of this. Example, tournaments. Well, tournaments is something we've been all asking for a long time. A couple months ago, we now got one. Everybody's like, this was fantastic.
And even just on game battles is fine with me at this point. Like, has game battles had a ladder at any point in this game? Like, I was wanting Face It in like year 1, right? Like, like that could solve it, by the way. Like, and the reason why they don't want that is because they don't want all the top level players and the Flatses of the world on another platform and on those different servers. Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too, Blizzard. If you want to own everything, you got to make it good. You can't. Okay, sorry. I'm getting upset. But like, if you just let there be a separate ladder, where it's a team ladder, and we actually like all agree like that's where you go to play real Overwatch, well then we don't have to complain about ranked every day. This isn't hard stuff. Okay, other games have done this. Like the competitive gaming's been around a long time. Okay, we like sometimes I feel this company just makes decisions like there's never been history before. Like there's no other games that they even owned that were esports. It's like it's not hard to learn from these things. Okay.
Here's a couple of questions on that, because basically what Frats is describing is also almost like a political system, right? We have Blizzard being perhaps the president or prime minister, depending on your country's political structure.
No,
We're
I
like
wish I didn't say it the way I did.
the content creators are like the cabinet, right? Like the people that, or the, you know, members of parliament, the representatives, seemingly elected by the content, by the community that watch our content to say, okay, we like you guys, so you can, you know, you somewhat speak for us, not directly, but you know, that's how it is, right? You somewhat speak for us, and we give you views because we continue to tolerate what you have to say. So in that model, the two questions I have is, one, do they listen to the cabinet enough? Do they listen to the content creators enough? Because we complained about that too. We said, well, I don't really know. We feel like we don't really get our hands on stuff. And two, does that still not oblige them to inform the public? You know, I totally respect Flats's argument about like, well, you don't want them in on the decision-making process. But I think, well, a lot of people listening to that will say, well, I don't need to be in on the decisions, but I would like some communication about where you're at, like what's going on. You know, like we've complained ourselves, like we don't even know what the development state of Overwatch 2 is. And I think a lot of the community feels frustrated because they're like, well, we don't know. And when they don't know, they get mad and they mold and they think Blizzard doesn't care and then the devs are incompetent.
I think I can help you with this, SV. All right, there's a very important concept in Blizzard. I assume some of traditional Blizzard values still hold true to this day, but there's a thing they used to say all the time, and it's called crawl, walk, run. Okay, and that means anytime they want to do anything, they try just a little bit and see, like, what does that do? Let's reassess that, and in 6 months, you know, we'll have the next step. And then it starts to walk, and then before you know it, it's like a huge deal and on full release and whatnot. Crawl, walk, run is what they call it. All right. So, I can't remember when that first NDA creator call was, but if we remember it, it was just kind of a hi, let's talk.
Ish.
Yeah.
Maybe October.
Right.
Yes.
But there was plans ahead of time, because you said you were talking to them in September. Which, if my calendar's right, that's 9 and October's 10, right? So they were planning on the next step. This is the crawl, walk, run thing. They try us out with this little thing, blah, blah, blah. And tomorrow, I mean, I'm not saying it's a run. I'm just saying at some point we're getting to some running, okay? Just vaguely. No leaks, but there's vaguely going to be running going on. And so it feels like we're on the momentum towards being more, at least from us, the creators. Like, I know SV's question's kind of about the community, but we're ramping up to something because I don't know. Speaking of calendars, if the pros are playing in April, they better be ramping up. Okay, the last I checked, that's 4 months away. So we need a build of a game that is competitively viable in 4 months. Where is it?
Did you
because
see
it
like
wasn't ready
Dante's
before.
tweet, Freedo? Did you see like Dante's tweet and a couple? So they tweeted out yesterday. When you need to sign your lease for 2022, but you don't know like how long you'll be playing or something. So I think based on how at least pro players are reacting to re-signing like their leases for their apartments and stuff, they didn't have any knowledge.
I think roster locks January. One of you probably know this better than me. I think OWL rosters have to lock by January.
No clue this year because they might be starting later. So because of the build. So
they play in April.
Are we sure they play? Have we had it?
Could be a delay. I don't think there's an official date.
I don't think there's an official date yet.
Hastro tweeted that they'll be playing April 22nd, I believe. I
did not see that, so you tell me. I'm not sure.
And and the implication was that he might have the season opener because he owns Dallas.
That would make sense.
I'm also hazy on these things. There's not a lot going on in Overwatch, but so I check out a little bit.
I won't find the tweet.
But yeah. If only there was one place that you could really trust for Overwatch news, your something or other. But yeah,
YouTube.com/Stylosa.
Yeah, he's great too.
I love Stylosa.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that it's dead set that the league will be starting in April.
Okay.
On the early build, so that means they need to have rosters like practice prior to that. So anyway, I'm just saying we're ramping up into Overwatch 2. So I expect early Q1 for there to be some bombs dropping. A lot of these questions we have like somewhat answered at the start of this momentum to be set in place. Like, to be honest, a lot of what we're talking about right now is too late. Like, they needed to have been working on this all year in order for it to be ready in April and frankly before April, because you don't want to just like be patching the game every week when they're supposed to have a season of the pro league. Like they need like it in a locked state, I would assume, at least 1 to 2 months before April
Ideally 2, but you know, beggars can't
So-
be choosers with that. That's my guess of like the timeline of things.
I was watching Super a couple, like, I don't know, it was like a week or 2 ago, but he was talking about the practice for that and said that at minimum he doesn't think they're going to get less than a month of practice time. Like they'll get a build to play on a month before the league kicks off. So that would put us at the end of March if that was the bare minimum they gave him. He thinks they'll give more. So that means that would be looking at like a February build, like for pro players at least, which is right after the roster lock. That's right around the corner. You know, that's and I mean, Blizzard goes on an extended break typically around the holidays, and I don't know where. I thought I saw somewhere that they might have even a further extended break. I don't know if that was just with Thanksgiving, when the Bobby stuff was starting to come up a couple weeks ago, or that also was going to count for Christmas break. But typically they go on a hefty break around Christmas time every year. So that means it's got to be close to ready then. If it is actually like February, like they're gonna have like January and maybe half of February to work on it. That crunch is scary looking, no? If
Agreed.
it's right.
We'll find out tomorrow.
No,
But this-
I mean
Well, maybe.
maybe.
But again, so Freedo, you had a point on the sort of not informing the community kind of thing. On the, you know, I just wanted to finish the crawl, walk, run thing.
Yeah, well, we're only getting clued in like slightly before you are. It's not like some massive gap where we're like influencing decisions. It's more so just to get us ready to cover the game. Oh, thank you for still covering the game. like that's kind of the implication. Like because by the way, other devs just do this, and like with Valorant, for example, super easy to get anybody, new creators with like 1,000 subs were getting access to things when Valorant was launching. Like the standard of that other games treat their creators is just different from Blizzard, and I've spoke about this at great length, so I feel most people probably know what I feel about this, not just from this call, but you know, much recently this year with all the turmoil. But so there's no benefit to the community to like not have us talk to them, is what I'm trying to say. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
you have to wait till things are public, but I mean, what's the alternative? You don't have someone in your corner, like in the discussion with them. There's just no upside for you to be like, and this is just like a general life principle as well. Like, it's never healthy for you to be upset at someone else's like a success or whatever they have. Like, that's just like envy. You got to get out of your heart. It's like, you could be a content creator too if you wanted to be. I don't advise it, but you know, like it's a
Stay away
terrible
from
career
Overwatch.
choice. Don't do that. But you know what I mean? Anyway,
Mhm.
does that make sense? I don't know if I've nailed that point enough, but like, what do you expect? It's like press get access to things. What do you think we are? We're just new media press. That's how it works. I don't know what to tell you.
It's actually a good point. I never heard that one before.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, I think.
And theirs are worse, man. Something that's just cringy, like pre-made articles where they just ask safe questions. I mean, and everybody's fine with that. Well, why don't we get in there? Because we're gonna grill them. That's the thing. That's the difference. Where the old media, it's like a comfy blanket, right? It's just like, oh yes, this is the marketing message that has been proved to say. Please publish this. That's the tone that you get. You don't get the maniacs in the corner like power creep. That's the word we all want to say right now because that's what we've been saying nonstop. You want to address the thing that we've been saying nonstop. Like, that's the only way, right? So if you want us with a seat at the table, don't whine about it. I guess it is the thing.
Yeah.
Don't listen.
And
The lions shouldn't care about the opinions of the sheep. Not to put too fine a point on it, but like you just let us.
You're
do our
gonna
thing,
get heat
okay?
for that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Fo-
Although
100%.
you're spitting facts, so I don't feel bad about it. You're just
Samito seeing a bit of himself in Freedo. No, I think I agree. And again, I think to sort of end the note there positively, it's been getting better. Like, we've complained about communication for a while, but as Flats has talked about as well, like Andy has been really putting in the work to try and repair, I think, the relationship between content creators and the dev team. And I feel like they're listening a lot more personally. So hopefully that should be a good sign for the community as well to sort of feel that, well, okay, they're starting to listen more. And that's, you know, great to hear in the ramp up to Overwatch 2. Now, ostensibly, we were here to wrap up the discussion of the year. So what I want to do now is quickly, if you guys, unless you guys have anything else to add, what I want to do is just drop the name of certain things that we've gotten in 2021 and just have you guys be like,
Lawsuits. Easy.
Yeah, just have you guys like, what I want you to do is say pause, or like if you want to talk about it at length. Otherwise, I want you to give like a quick like summary of your feelings on it. Does that sound good?
Was 2021?
Yeah, like I'm just gonna rattle off some things. Yeah, on
Okay.
2021.
Oh, okay,
Okay?
go for it.
Okay, it's crossplay.
Yeah.
Eh. Good for the
Completely
game.
Essential.
essential, good for the game.
It's just icing on the cake, though. It's not foundation. Our problem's the foundation, but that is icing on the cake. That is important.
Okay, the switch from Jeff to Aaron.
Needed to happen.
Still early to tell.
I don't give small answers.
You can give a little bit of a dwelling on this one, Freedo. This is a pause
okay,
moment.
yeah. Okay, pause. Sorry, I didn't understand the rules. So I wasn't
Yeah,
paying
yeah. So if you
attention.
want to talk about it, just
I
go
got
pause.
you. All right. I was gonna say, like, as a general theme for this year, not just that, but like, between Andy, us, NDA comments and stuff. I think the key word for me is change. Like, I feel the change. I feel the gears turning. I don't know what to attribute it to. I don't know if it's Jeff. I don't know, whatever. Like, it's not really important to me, but I feel tangible change is like in the air. So we're switching gear. Like Sam said, it takes like a year to adjust. I think that's pretty accurate with because you got to set a plan. Like, if you're like, we're going to do something different, well, you got to set a plan to then start doing that thing. And then all the crawl, walking and running, right? It takes time to catch up. So Jeff left, I believe I said this earlier. I thought it was in March, around there, Q1, basically.
Q1, yeah.
And I think
April.
April. Okay. I would imagine around then it was evident the game was going to be delayed. I think we found out about it much later, but I think deving the game, they had to have looked around and been like, gonna need more time on this. But then there's the Overwatch League problem. So it's like, there's been a lot of that and conflict. And so it's hard to know that they're going to stick the landing on this, but we are seeing positive change, at least. The thing that I'm a little worried about, though, is just like, we have to make short-term decisions to like fix the problem now when we might need longer structural change. I just don't even know if we have the time to do that, unfortunately. Especially when we're talking about like the foundation of the game. I care about the format, whatnot. Like, I'm not too optimistic on those things, but at least there's symptoms of change, which the game needs. So that's better than no change.
And I loved Jeff, by the way. I think Jeff was an awesome dude. It's just, it's got to go somewhere. It's got to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I just want to add on the crossplay thing, because I know we were kind of underwhelmed by it. I think we would feel the impacts, and we will feel the impacts of crossplay more in the future when there's more stuff to supplement it. I think right now we're kind of like underwhelmed because it came with nothing else, and it didn't really give us too much. Like, I tried to run some content with it, but it was like, okay, well, yeah, but what can you really do when nothing else is coming? But I think in the future, if we have more tournaments and stuff, like, then suddenly crossplay opens up a whole avenue of
that would be crazy. Yes,
awesome stuff, right? Like playing with your friends in tournaments across platforms would be amazing. So
because I real quick, SVB, to add on to that,
Go ahead.
Overwatch could have better competitive crossplay than literally any other game on the market. It could do it better than Fortnite, better than, like, we have the most potential because we have the best systems in place for it, and we have a game that does not necessarily need to be played on mouse and keyboard due to multiple roles in the game. So it could be really good. But sorry, continue.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point, and more to be seen on that, I think. The 2 deathmatch maps, Malevento and Kanezaka.
I loved them, actually. I'm not gonna lie. Good. They were good. I played with all my IRL friends for we grinded. It was really fun.
I can't remember, when did the workshop come out, like, fully and properly? I'm trying to remember. Is that
that's before that. That's long before.
That was 2019.
What I was gonna say is, like, I think a major victory of Overwatch that we just kind of take for granted, though, is the queuing modes, basically. Like, those new death modes are really good for queuing, and the workshop has also supplemented that as well. Because there is other popular games that have longer queue times. Like, I think we in Overwatch kind of expect short queue times, but there's a bunch of games where you are kind of expected to wait.
Yeah, League of Legends, you actually wait pretty long.
Match. Yeah, I was thinking of Dota myself. I haven't played League that much, but it can be a little bit to get a fair match in some of these games. So, but anyway, like that. So being able to have constant uptime and busy yourself with something, that's what I like those maps for, because it was Malevento and what's the one with the jump pads? Anytime you add jump pads in this game, Blizzard, I'm a happy guy. So just add more.
Malevento's the jump pads. Kanezaka's the other one.
We also did we get the Hollywood elevators this year? Was that year?
No. Yeah.
Hard to remember.
No.
I think so.
No. That was we're
Or was it
let's-
October era?
uh,
It
let's just
feels
say it
like
was
one of
this
those
year. Let's just say
golden
it was this
October
year.
thingies.
That was a great
Everything
change.
was
Can we add that to the
October.
list?
Yeah, great
Oh,
change.
the
Thank
bigger
you.
elevators.
Yeah, rip
Yeah.
Mangachu's staircase. Rip Mangachu's staircase. Do you remember that where he drew that like back in
Yeah, I remember
2017 and
that.
everyone still brings it up? Yeah, it's funny.
Yep.
We love you, Mangachu.
Flats, don't strain yourself with such a big stretch. Okay, like I think that's a very unhealthy stretch that you're reaching for. I mean, I agree with you. I like the elevators, but I mean that's our
Wow.
content for the year.
It's like Apex content are like, we only got 7 new things this year, and then we're like, hey, we got elevators, guys. Like we're just out here like,
We got working elevators.
elevators aren't RNG anymore.
The Apex kids are like the youngest kid in the family. You know what I'm talking
yeah.
about? The
I
kid
know
that
how
gets
good they got
spoiled.
it.
Like even
Yeah.
I spoil my little sister sometimes. You know what I mean? Just like, but like it's just good riddance. Meanwhile, we're the oldest siblings. We're like the first. I will say this about Overwatch real quick. Overwatch was the last game of the previous generation of gaming to come out. I will say I think PUBG and Fortnite
fair.
generationally changed things, and I think that I'm really happy that Overwatch was the last generation of what I would consider to be my childhood. Overwatch was the last game of that to me personally. But sorry to go off topic.
No, that's a nice.
Because it was
right.
the last game in that kind of format. It was the last one before the whole industry changed, and I think that you couldn't end on a higher note personally.
Very nicely said. The lore, little bits of lore that we got. Cassidy, Farah's comics coming out now.
I think the lore got upgraded. I don't remember about this year. I think last year it got really upgraded and set a new standard. So they've just been continuing that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I listen? Okay.
Where's this gonna go? Hold on.
Love story games. Have you never seen? I'm playing Halo right now. I'm crushed. I'm doing like every side quest, every bounty. I've been playing Red Dead. People go bananas over my Red Dead playthrough because I'm just Thanos. I try to keep everything in check. Like there must always be good
All
and must
things
be
in
bad.
balance.
And I have just mercilessly slaughtered so many people, but also I've also saved every single person that I could. It's just this balance. But Overwatch lore, absolutely in zero case, other than the shorts, like the animated shorts, appeals to me about this much. And I think that there's many others that it appears to this much because there's no in-game connection to it. And people play the game for the game. If you write a comic and put it on Twitter or on your website, I just don't really care. And I think that there's a lot of good storytelling in there. And I'm big on Overwatch 2 PvE. I think the PvE is going to be sick. Seagull has talked about it a ton. He's super excited for it. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be big pog. And I think that's a great way to bring the lore in. But until then, I could not give a single shit
That's
less,
a great take.
honestly.
That's a great take. I agree.
So
Fair. And yeah, we've kind of alluded to the lawsuit scandals, but the Cassidy name change, anything anyone wants to add on that front? Because that's
if you're one
just
of the
us-
people, if you're one of the people that just constantly like tries to correct people and say McCree, I hate you. I think you're just weird. And stop being edgy.
Yeah,
Stop doing
those
that.
guys are
That ship sailed. It's not important.
If you still think it's funny to when someone says Cassidy to be like Humiga lol, like bro, just reassess your
Look,
life.
Nobody
it
thinks it's
depends
funny.
on like what people are saying and ranked because like there's a difference.
If you make a call
between,
and it's a wrong thing, that's fine.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't care.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah,
difference
like,
between
no
like
one's
if you type Cassidy in the comments and someone goes, "You mean McCree?"
Yeah, those guys. Nobody has a problem with you accidentally calling him McCree. I think that it's the guys who are like, no, please, no, you must call. No,
I didn't hug you enough. I know.
Listen, we have bigger fish to fry than that one for everyone's sake. So it is what it is.
So that's it. Sadly, that's basically all we got in 2021 that I can think of. Unless there's anything, unless we missed.
You guys said I was reaching on the elevators. I don't know about that.
We were reaching. Yeah, we had
That's one of the biggest in-game changes we got.
That's actually probably the most competitive. Oh, that's true. They patched
Shatter getting removed. Oh, dude. They took my one thing, dude.
Wait, I know exactly how to light a little fire. It's not this podcast if we don't stir up a bit of trouble. Am I right?
Let's go.
If Ledge Dash gets removed, you know exactly where I'm going with this one, boys. If Ledge Dash gets removed, Ryan B-Hop gets removed. Super Jump's next, Mercy Mains. Just letting y'all know.
Oof, Sam,
Not-
bro,
not
why are you
okay.
trying to get
Anywhere
Twitter
near
to,
that.
why are you
No,
trying to
I
get Twitter
actually-
to destroy you, bro?
I actually like that's just for people to crop stuff out of context, just because I know they always do it. For the record, I actually like Super Jump, and I think that it should be incorporated as an ability because it would help lower rank Mercies be able to get more proactive with the hero and help them climb so they don't feel useless. I think it's cool personally. But I also like B-Hop, Tatter Shatter, and Ledge Dash. So like, why
That
not?
was
Let
that
them
was
all-
the stupidest thing to remove. I can't believe they did that. That actually hurt my soul. I actually asked, "Why did you guys do that?" And I got no answer. And I'm not gonna lie. I'm coming back. You know what? I'll put it on my agenda for tomorrow. Y'all better watch out.
Oh no.
I'm hijacking the conversation. Yeah, I know you guys want to talk about this, but I have a question first.
But 1 minute. Hold up. It wasn't even like it was breaking the game or anything. It wasn't even like it was like super. Anyways. So with that covered, let's conclude then and come to concluding thoughts. I want you guys to give me your big picture wishes for 2022. Potentially the year that, well, we will definitely get the first look at Overwatch 2 in its serious form. Who knows whether we get anything substantial? We get a beta, we get the full game, who knows? So all of those variables put to one side. What is our big picture wishes for 2022 for Overwatch? Starting with Sam.
Well, I mean, first I want to tip the hat and say, I think that we got the worst out of the way. I think that everyone kind of felt tension building for years surrounding Overwatch and the direction it was being taken, and I think that that bubble has now bursted. So we are back in the growth phase, which I think is very good. My biggest wish list is to see us be competitors again. Like, I loved it when Overwatch was competing with everybody to be number one, and I think that's where this game deserves to be. I think it deserves to be at the top of the industry. I think this game is going to be the game that brings the world together in a way that we've never seen, and I am damn proud to be a part of that community no matter what. Like, and I think that next year is the year that this development team gets it done. And I think that there's a fire in everyone's belly. I'm excited. I want to see, I just want to see consistent content. I want to see things that really make content creators feel like assets to Blizzard so that we can go out and help advertise for them and bring people to the game and we get treated as such. Whether that be through formatting with support a creator program like every other game title has, consistent cosmetics, things to give us things to push for you. Like we want to be assets. That's what we want to be. So enable us to help you help yourself. I am actually really excited for PvE. I'm a huge Borderlands fan. I love the Borderlands series. I'm really excited for Wonderlands 2 to come out soon. I'm going to be grinding that. But I think that I'm ready to see Overwatch truly expand for the first time since Junkenstein's Revenge first came out on what it could potentially be. And I'm really excited to see it really tap into that potential going into 2022. And I hope that we really get that with Overwatch 2.
Well said. I want to quickly piggyback on that and say that I really share Sam's optimism. I think we'll look back and say 2021 was the worst year for Overwatch ever. I'm hopeful that we'll never have I don't think we'll Overwatch 2 all willing. I don't think we'll ever have a worse year. So we survived that and we're here. So that's something to think about, right? Or something to think about.
Cost.
And Slats, over to you.
I have two. One selfish and one for the community. For the community tournaments, I think that even if the prize pool doesn't have to be crazy, having more of them, I genuinely want to call on Overwatch League teams. I think that you guys are severely need to severely take a look at what is the best thing for this game and what can bring the absolute most value. Now, I know that, teams especially run on a very thin line of profitability, and most of them I'm pretty sure most run in the negative, except I think Shock talked about being like the first in the positive team, for actually making back money that they spent. Regardless, though, I think especially when Overwatch 2 comes out, etc., you're gonna have a lot of people. You're gonna have a lot of those big gaming orgs like TSM come just barging back in, 100 Thieves, etc., and they're gonna want a big slice of the pie. I think that now especially right now, to one, to get us to the Overwatch 2, and two, to start being the gold standard. It's kind of on not only us as the community. I mean, like, hey, project creators, we're kind of doing our part. We just made a whole balance patch. You know, like we're trying to make content for everybody. And the Overwatch League has done great. The Overwatch League as a whole has done great. I'd like to see more of the teams put on tournaments like the Defiant did. Now, I know the Defiant did it at the exact same time, so I don't honestly know much about their tournament, as the Overwatch tournaments, etc. But imagine we got into a world where every 3 weeks or every month we were getting a tournament. Let's say we got an Overwatch tournament every 3 months, and then Overwatch League teams were running one every month. You know, and you had a point where the entire community was keeping itself going, and having a return on that somehow. You know, I mean, Play Overwatch has showed us that, yeah, like, would there have been better if there was a live broadcast? Yes. I've organized tournaments. I've ran tournaments. I know the costs that come across with it. They definitely cut costs by not having a live broadcast. Could you do something about that? I'm sure there's casters and there's members of this community that would absolutely love to cast games on their behalf. I absolutely know so, because casters went back and casted some of the matches that were from the quarters, semis, and finals on their own time. So I don't think that wouldn't have been something that could have been worked out. But regardless, though, I think that is the number one way to keep people remembering and to keep people fighting into the game and remembering what this game truly is. And I think part of what that made old Overwatch so good, if you remember back 2016, 17, 18, there was a lot of tournaments back then, especially when Overwatch League wasn't formed yet. You know, of course, you had your massive Apex tournament, but like there were tons of small tournaments at the
There were
same time.
weeklies. It was weeklies. What was it called? Oh my god, you remember that? It was Envision
Alienware
always
monthly
played.
melee.
Oh my
Melee,
God.
no.
There
Alienware
was
monthly
melees too,
melee.
but there was a weekly tournament that Envision and McGravy always played in, and like Dante and like on his original
It wasn't
teams played in it
ESL,
too.
was it?
No, it was. Oh my, idiot! Damn.
He'll come to you. He'll come to you. Don't worry.
Continue. Sorry.
But
I was
like,
talking about ZP and Hex casting. That's one I remember. That was like the bigger one. Maybe what you're talking about was before that. I can't remember.
but like, pointing the way, there was a lot of tournaments back then, you know, and there was a lot of storylines and all players that got built up through those. And when Overwatch League came around, like they were snatching those players up left and right, and there was a lot behind it. A lot of content creators were made. The biggest content creator now on Twitch was made during that fire, you know,
Yeah,
as you can
yeah.
see. So like there was a lot of stuff that was in those, and a lot of storylines, and a lot of things people loved and remembered. And I think that's something that we could really, really, really latch into. And I know Play Overwatch can't do it on their own. You know, community run tournaments are not, I mean, like content creator run tournaments is like, you know, you're kind of asking a lot of one content creator to make a tournament like that. A lot of us don't have the resources for that. Like even Fran's tournament took a lot of effort. You know, like I remember Fran had to do a stupid amount of work to make that happen. And especially like in the off season with a lot of Overwatch League teams, I think this is a good time. That's my call to action, is for Overwatch League teams to maybe think about stepping up and having their tournaments. I know Boston has stuff for collegiate and stuff like that, and that's great. But something for all players, and something for all players of Overwatch to have. I think that's something that we should think about asking or having going forward. My selfish, now this is where I get a little bit more, I don't know, I don't have a better word other than selfish, I guess. For what I want to see for Overwatch is I want to stop seeing the numbers crash as hard as they are. If you look at January Overwatch last year, or this year, sorry, we're averaging somewhere around 22,000 viewers a month. And if you look at the year before that, it was pretty much still on par, except for when Echo released, it had a big jump, but then it kind of like stayed like around the 25K mark for about 6-7 months. And then as we got into this year, February, March, it starts to drop to where in September it had dropped 50%. It went from 22K to 10. Actually, more than a 50% drop. That is not sustainable. Now, if you have like graphs of something like, you know, goes over time and declines and has a state of like, you know, where it's decaying, like, you know, typically it's a very slow, like, decline curve. And Overwatch had that decline curve, But then it just had this massive drop in the last 6 months, and that's unheard of, you know. And as a content creator, Overwatch is our livelihood. Okay, like let's be honest, it is reckless to sit there and look at it and go, oh, like I just want to play this game and this game only, and I want it to work and I want it to make it work. Yes, and I think that for everyone in this call, that's the case. But if it looks like the tides aren't changing and the numbers keep dropping as fast as they are, people are going to be in trouble real quick. And I don't want that to happen. So my number one goal is to start to see those things kind of start to turn around. You know, us have something to deliver as content, not just reusing the same thing over and over. I don't want to be asked to do an unranked GM again. I've never done one for stream. I'm so sick of people coming in and asking them for me. They're just the most overused content at this point. I'm done with it. I'm done with hearing it. I want something new. I want something fresh. I want something we can latch onto, whether it's tournaments, something, whatever it might be, something to keep us from falling as fast as we are. Because I'm someone who's a super motivated individual. When I finish my stream, I'm never done for the day. I spend a bunch of time like looking at other communities, you know, other content creators, like what do they do, things that they do well, things that I could learn from. Could I apply something to Overwatch? Would that be cool for my community? Is that something fun I could do here? I always go at least a couple hours after my stream. I still keep going with YouTube, Twitch, etc., looking into new platforms. It's very demotivating for me as a human to put as much value as I do into Overwatch and as much work as I do into my craft, into streaming, into content creation, and see how small the returns have gotten since. And I'm not talking even financially. I'm talking about, you know, followers per day or per stream or whatever. It's like a quarter of what it was back in March or January. And I am a very different streamer than when I was then, size wise, because I've had a series kickoff on YouTube that exploded. I've had like many other opportunities. You would think that you would see the numbers upscale from all that stuff happening, but realistically, they're either stagnant or down. And that's a very scary thing to see for all the effort that's being put in, not seeing it grow. As if you would be in a different community, you would see it grow exponentially. And I don't want to be reckless, but I also have a giant love for this game. So I definitely want to see in 2021 how that pans out. And I have a very high hope that we can kind of turn that around, not only selfishly, but for my other content creator friends around me.
Yeah. Well said. Freedo.
Flats to give a really great speech. I'll try to keep mine brief. I want honest communication. There's a lot of crazy things that we just laid out that are serious, like problems. And I need to feel like we've got the momentum of the teamwork of creators and the devs on the same page. Because for a big history of this game, it's felt like there was one idea and that's all we're doing. And anybody else is a forum troll. That's what it felt like. And I'll say scoreboard again. I think the results kind of speak for themselves on some of these points that I'm just sick of arguing about it. Like the argument's been had, you didn't win. So now you take the L, which I think they're kind of doing, right? They're like, well, probably a bad idea for us to ignore our community for years when every other game gets them in and then everyone gets happy all of a sudden. It's weird. It's like, it's almost like they know
it's a successful product. Yeah.
I'm not saying we know everything. I'm just saying I want to be involved in that communication and it to feel honest, because the truth is a lot of this stuff, like I've been kind of quiet about 5v5 and Overwatch 2 in this call today. Buckle in is my statement to everybody. I think it's going to be worse. I think wherever your expectations are, like you need to lower them first on so many different levels for Overwatch 2. It's going to take a while, because if we're not, if they haven't really dealt with some of the foundational things that are going to be a problem, I think it's going to feel like a step back before it's a step forward. And that's tricky. Like we're going to have to be like kind of fair with them on that, because the truth is, I think there was probably an internal delay, some internal struggles that we're not going to know about until like 5 years. I think like what they have shown us is way less than what we expected from this time. So it's like it's more than just Jeff leaving. It's more than the turmoil, and like there's a lot of things at play. Okay, So I want to feel like an ally in that, not like the enemy, not like the evil media that just paints Blizzard in the wrong light all the time, which is kind of a thing. But it doesn't have to be like that. Like we can build this together, and they're starting to let us in with that a little bit, and take some of these things seriously. But there's a lot more they have to do. Like it's like a little peek into the walk. I always said crawl, walk, run. Okay, so we're like walking now, and it's like, oh, well, this might work. Like let's see the run, because we're gonna need to be running next year when we have a game that's new, supposedly, right? Like it's here, so we better start talking about this, and that's got to get worked out. Otherwise, it's gonna be messy. Like what you don't want to see. Okay, Overwatch 2 pro build. I don't want to make a video littered with flaws we all saw coming. Okay, I do not want to do that. Do not make me do that. I want to be like, well, this is promising, and at least they're addressing that, and they're listening to this. And guys, look how fun this new character is, which we should have with the new build and whatnot. Like we know what the formula is for interest in this game, and we know how to kill this game. So let's stop doing the bad things and do more of the good things. That's about as deep as we're going to get 3 hours into this call. So
has it been 3 hours?
It's been 3 hours.
Two and a half. Two and a half.
Almost
Are you
3.
serious?
Sam's in
Holy
the shot.
like 10
dude,
minutes.
I feel like I just want to say I haven't felt like this since I used to like Flats. I was a Ryan player in season 3. Back in
happened,
season
man?
3, what happened? I started playing Genji where my heart belonged, and was disappointed before you were. But it's really crazy how time flies when you're doing something you love. And I'd like to add on to my wish. I want Overwatch to be like that again. I used to be able to stream the game for 12 hours every day, and I could have played that tournament for 12 hours. So to reiterate what Freedo said, like, do what works, do what people love, do what makes game of the year. We want to be complimentary. It's just been really freaking hard. Like I don't know.
And let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you got off the first day of the tournament, did you feel like kind of, I don't know what the word is, like kind of like tingly intense? You were like, I want to play again right now, and you couldn't sleep.
I did.
I don't know how to describe it.
On day one,
I wanted to go again.
On day one,
go again.
all of my friends in Cincinnati, there was a giant convention called SantaCon. They all went out to the bars and stuff, and they were pestering me to go out, and I locked my door, and I secretly played on it all day.
That says a lot, dude. Yo, I forgot to mention this. That experimental card, this is a really important point, because like SV keeps bringing up, like, it's the creators and not really the community and whatnot get included in. The community loved this card, dude. Like, and I think a lot of that is Flats. Like, everyone else did their job too, but the most radical changes, I guess the support's getting tuned back too.
Violet was sleeper. Violet did a great
Everyone
job.
did a good job, but I'm just saying I felt like Flats took the lead on that. I don't know if I'm categorizing it, but I'm trying to give my man props on this. And those queue times 10 days later were still like quick play-esque. Okay, so the again scoreboard. People like this, and it's not it's not just benefiting creators. Like, people were excited to come on and actually play the game again, and I think you guys deserve, all three of you deserve props on that. But I think
a lot of tweets, a lot of good tweets.
It starts with the way it feels to interact with the game, and I think like we started with the show wit. That's the main tank. And if we were playing a different meta, if you made it some different like sniper meta or something, I think people would not be as happy, right? So anyway, so. That's my little spiel I wanted to go on. I really wanted to bring that up earlier. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
Big success.
My buddy who plays Ryan. Sorry, you go ahead, SVB.
No, you go.
My buddy who plays Ryan, who literally has had to quit the game. He was so over it. Like, while he was in school, he was like, I can't queue comp because it literally makes my life miserable. And he loves Reinhardt. He's played Reinhardt since day one. Right? I queued the experimental with him, and when I tell you, it literally sounded like a kid at Christmas, a 10-year-old. He charged across the map, got in there with Nano, shatters one-shots in Orisa. Oh, like, that's what I remember. That's the Overwatch I remember. The playmakers, the Reinhardt. Like, I could play Ryan matches all day, and then the icing on the cake was our buddies is that it was a patch made for Blake, because the icing on the cake was the voice line and the visual of blocking Shatter and him just being like, get dumpster, like the mind games, like it was glorious, just absolutely glorious. Scoreboard, as Freedo says. Perfect.
I think it's like a real testament to simply like why when we say we want content creators to be involved more, I think this is like a testament to why, is because at least some, maybe not all content creators, but most content creators understand what people want, because their entire job is to interact with their community all day and figure out what they like. And I think what Flats did was like, you know what, I think the community really get a kick out of when the Ryan blocks a shatter, a little voice line comes out. Like, it's such like a quality of life thing that really indicates that someone understands what gives like a player like a little giggle, which is obviously what a job of a dev is too, but that's where you kind of have a mutual relationship where, you lean on the other guy, like, actually, this would be really funny. I think the community really get a kick out of this. So yeah, again, kudos on that. And I think to finish that point, I think I would love to see more of the community get involved as well, because I think a lot of us contributors played. And in the future, I would love to see, and I've told the devs about it, I'd love to see like tournaments that maybe have SR limits so that, players who are like, in gold or whatever, they can kind of play and have that same experience and not feel like they're going to get like destroyed. Even though getting destroyed was a good experience as well, and I learned a lot personally, but I still think, not everyone wants to go up against Muma and get shit on and use that as a learning experience. So
yeah, I didn't play that bad.
I did.
He's talking about
I'm talking about myself.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I got it's funny because, like I said, I was also riding against Muma Flats. I feel your pain. I was also there.
Jesus.
So I was also getting shat on ping. By the way, I want to justify myself. I was on ping.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I felt bad when you guys were playing with Winston comp. I guess I was like, man, I already tried that. That ain't gonna work.
Yeah, we were trying it, and I was like, guys, I just literally I said partway through, I was like, guys, please, can we just try the Rhine variant? Like, I'm just getting fucked, please.
We actually had
anyways.
some good success with Winston on Blizzworld against that, but we went Somber Reaper.
I actually had to swap off. I was gonna mention this way earlier when you were talking about that stuff, because everyone's like, "Oh, Ryan was so buff." Whatever. I actually had to swap off Ryan on Blizzworld because we couldn't make it work. They were playing poke, and we couldn't get close to them. Even with Giga Chad, Ryan didn't work. I had to go Orisa.
We played Sim with ours to get the speed. I had a TP down every fight to get to proc speed boost or like TP in, and then we just use that constantly in the Sim walls to engage.
Damn, smart.
It's fun. You would have liked it. You were in the backline the whole time. It would have been great.
Yeah,
My Sim's cracked. That's all I can say. My
Sim is good. Sim is good. Yeah,
broken hero.
Yeah, just fun stuff and more of that same. I think for me, I think another sort of philosophical point is I'd love to just see Overwatch on the map again and Overwatch like vibrant again, because well, I started making Overwatch content by the time it was already kind of on the downturn. So when I started, it was like, oh, Overwatch, yeah, I know that game. And then it went to like, Overwatch, oh, do people still play that game? And now when I'm like, I'm an Overwatch content creator, people are like, what?
Yeah.
What's that? I've never heard of it.
What are you talking about?
I've never heard of that game.
Wait,
So
is it
well-
free? I'll download it if it's free. That's what they always tell me.
Yep. Yeah.
SVB.
So, yeah.
We're so behind.
There's actually another. We used to use Apex as an example for a game that died off and got brought back to life. Fortnite was like, how Fortnite was like kind of starting to slide off the map. They've kind of revived themselves again. Have you noticed? I don't know if you've seen, but like,
yeah, it's like popping again.
Oh,
yeah,
watch this.
they brought it back to life again. Like, it's proven it can be done.
Well, there's a lot of games like that now. Like Minecraft is another. Like Minecraft just keeps going, man. Like this, we were talking about it earlier in our chat. It's just like
they
it
found
never-
the well of whatever the
Yeah.
fuck that's called, like the fountain of youth.
Well of
that game.
eternity. Well of
Yeah,
eternity.
that game's just forever gonna be like popping.
But not forever. Actually, I have a funny story about Minecraft because that's obviously where I came from. We told them their PvP changes were bad, and the developer laughed in our face at TwitchCon. And then the game slowed down for like 3 straight years. That's why when Overwatch came out, and then they changed it back. And guess what happened, guys? Guess what happened? Take a look in the chat. You know me, boys. Guess which one is which.
Oh, Sam's got his graphs out again.
Oh, he's got the graphs out. Yep.
Chat. There's an upturn. There's an upturn.
I'm guessing yellow is Minecraft. Overwatch is blue, or no? Blue. Overwatch is red. It's got to be red.
Come on, lads.
It's the yellow one's too high.
Yeah.
The yellow one's got to be Minecraft, right?
Yeah.
So what's the blue one?
Fortnite.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Because I was gonna say Overwatch one that looks like a hospital patient that.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Sorry,
Yeah.
the
Actually,
Oh my god, that guy's
Actually,
dead.
yeah.
That guy's dead. Do not
That guy's
resuscitate.
dead.
Do
That's-
not resuscitate.
That's over 5 years worldwide Google Trends.
Oh, it's been dead that long.
Wow. Well,
What,
okay.
Overwatch? I mean, well, we haven't been dead. It's the problem with, again, the thing that we kind of brought up is it's just been a steady decline, right? Like all these other titles have innovated and like work with content creators, and you see at least 1 or 2 years that are higher than the previous year, and we've just never innovated like that. So it's unlucky.
Mhm.
Anyway.
Well, here's to hoping that will get better. Here's to hoping that
Yep.
2022 is the year it starts to turn around for us. Because like I said, I do think 2021 was probably the worst year in Overwatch's history. The devs feel it too, so show some sympathy, guys. When we rant at the devs and we say shit, but also remember to show some sympathy. Like they're also feeling it. If they know, they're not clueless. They're not like Overwatch is great. What do you mean? Like I think they know as well as much as we do. So here's to hoping it goes better. Any other things you guys want to add before I let you get going? And thank you so much for your time once again. And it's been a great year talking to you guys. Even if we don't get to call before the end of the year, it's been a blast talking to you guys this year.
I'll start off with I just want to say thank you to all the Overwatch team for being responsive. I've kind of been out of the loop the last 6 months, but from what I've seen nothing but positive things and heard nothing but positive things, and it's really important. And this is something I want the community to understand. And I was really, really mad at the community a couple weeks ago. When the effort is made and you don't acknowledge it as a community, you are part of the problem. And from what I've seen, and I'm one of the most brutally honest people you'll see talking about this stuff, the effort is being made, and it's important as a community that we acknowledge it. So, because if you don't acknowledge it, how do you think they're going to receive it? Well, these people aren't grateful anyway. Why would we even bother working with them? And now, granted, while that probably shouldn't be the response, it is what it is. So when you see the effort and you see a human being or a team make the effort, it's imperative that you acknowledge it, or you are part of the problem. Don't be a part of the problem. Thank you, Blizzard, for putting in the effort, especially with this experimental. I think the worst of it's behind us, and we are looking forward to moving forward and making this game the best in the world as its rightful place, in my opinion.
Cosign. +1.
Flat, same thing to add.
I mean, spot on. It's
Yeah.
it's funny actually. A lot of people that when that came out were saying to me like, "Oh, there's so many negative responses." I go, "Where?" And they're like, "Oh, like they're like on Twitter." I go, "Don't see a single one." They're like, "What about on the forums?" I go, "Listen to me. Have you ever seen someone go on the forums for a good reason? Like if you're satisfied with a restaurant, do you go on their Yelp? No, you just leave.
You
just
tell your buddies about it, and you go again the next week.
yeah, exactly. You don't go online and start writing shit. You go online to start writing shit if you got something to bitch about. That's a very small minority, and I'm not seeing it in my Twitter sphere because I don't follow the people like that.
Well,
That's
the
it.
the numbers don't lie, right? As Freedo said, the queue times were still down. The numbers don't lie, baby. The numbers were good.
Ball don't lie.
All right.
Ball don't lie.
And on that optimistic positive, which is what we want to bring. Thank you guys for your time again. I hope you guys in the call and you guys watching all have a wonderful holiday season, whatever you celebrate or don't celebrate. Enjoy the rest of your year. If we don't hear from you guys, we'll be back for 2022. Hopefully lots of more positive stuff to talk about. So thank you guys for...
There'll always be something to talk about.
There'll be something.
Jury's
We'll
out
find
if it's
something.
positive, I hope. But there's going to be new stuff for sure to discuss.
Yeah.
Yes. And so here's to that. And thank you guys. Have a good one. Peace.
Bye bye.